Expansion.
Well, the studio is unusually decorated, especially if we have a look on 3, because we have a very special guest in the building today, ladies and gentlemen. Not only is he a very good friend, but he is, and I hope I get this right, Lieutenant Grand Master for the Knights of Malta. This is worldwide, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant Grand Master of the Knights of Malta, which is a 900-plus-year-old organization. And he's also the Prior of Australia.
Yeah, Grand Prior of Australia.
Grand Prior of Australia. I knew I'd get that wrong somewhere,
right,
but
yeah.
I was pretty close, Sid. I did my best.
You did
Welcome
well.
to the show, my brother. Sydney,
you, brother.
Borg, congratulations
Thank you,
on everything that you've done and everything that you've achieved in your life. And we're going to try and pull it apart and doing some justice on the show. And in the process, hopefully, not only have a great time, but part with some wisdom and share with our viewers a lot of this vital information, awesome memories and stories that I'm sure you have to tell for us today, Sid. But
good to be here.
Thank you, my friend. I'm going to get straight into it. As you guys can see, we've got the cape, we've got the sword, and a couple other bits and pieces. And I think a part of the show definitely is going to be dedicated to that. But I want to start with Sid, the man, Sid the boy. Maltese background, born in Malta or born in Australia?
First generation, born in Australia. Yeah,
sure.
Parents and brother and sister were born in Malta. Immigrants.
Sure.
1951. And I was born in 1959, so I'm going to give away my age.
Sure. But some people aren't good with maths, so we'll just leave it there. You don't have to say your age. They can work it out by themselves. So how many brothers and sisters?
I had one brother and 2 sisters.
Okay, sure. And you're the youngest?
No, I'm actually I'm third in line.
Sure.
So I've got a younger sister.
Okay, awesome. And all right, so you've come over. You're born here. The family's come over from Malta, and very different times. Australia in those days, I'm sure.
Tough times.
The whole world was, but it was a much tougher time to be alive, wasn't it? Where life wasn't as comfortable as it is.
Well, it was, Raf, because, I mean, as I said, I was first generation, and people will say, well, hang on, you're a Borg, you're Maltese, how the hell did you get the name Sydney, right?
Yeah.
But of course, my parents immigrated out here, and they came out on a ship called the HMAS Sydney. And I was born in Crown Street Women's Hospital. They closed it down not long after that, probably because I was born there.
We don't want any more.
But exactly, close it down now. But and we lived in Crown Street, so I was first son born in Australia, HMA Sydney. They lived in Sydney, so my father thought, well, let's Australiafy this boy, and they gave me Sydney, and they then gave me my middle name's James Phillip. And none of them are Maltese. So James was because James Cook was the discoverer of Australia, and Phillip was the first governor.
Yeah.
So that's the history behind that name. But it was definitely tough times. Tough times for my parents as immigrants.
Yeah.
It was, one of the big wave of immigration that happened in Australia after the war.
Sure.
Malta had nothing left to offer. My parents after the war. My father fought in World War II. And after that, they had no jobs to go to. The country was decimated. So there was
most of Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. But in particular Malta, because Malta was the heaviest bombed country in World War II.
Wow.
So it copped a smashing, and so they immigrated to Australia, and it was tough. In those days, it was a very much Anglo-Saxon country,
of course.
And we were the wogs. And even when I went to school, and when we moved out to a place called Green Valley, which used to be called Dodge City. In those days, and in fact, there's a movie called Whatever Happened to Green Valley. That was directed by a very famous director called Peter Weir.
Yep.
And Peter Weir went on to make a lot of famous movies.
Yeah.
And Peter Weir actually did this video in Ashcroft High School during the 70s when I was there.
Okay.
And it was called Whatever Happened to Green Valley, and it just talked about the livelihood of what the life that we sustained in what was one of Sydney's major housing commission estates.
And it was in Green Valley?
In Green Valley.
Oh, okay, cool. Obviously nowadays we think of Green Valley as a semi-modern, nice suburb in the general area of the southwest, near Liverpool, out that way. but definitely I wouldn't think of it as housing commission. No, no.
It was all housing commission. There was there were no trees, so I don't know why they called it Green Valley.
Sure.
There was nothing green about it, and it was brand new, all fibro homes, a few brick houses and a couple of brick flats, but most of the properties were purchased. I remember the price was $3,500 for the house.
Wow.
And it was in 1964, I think, and and the schools were all brand new. We'd only just come back because we lived in the city, and my father came home one day and said, "Pack your bags, we're leaving Australia," and we immigrated to New Zealand when I was only a couple of years old.
I had no idea, brother.
So we lived in New Zealand for a couple of years.
Sure.
As far south as you could ever imagine, a place called Winton, and it was just so cold there. And we came back. We lived in King's Cross, my parents managed a small hotel, which is where the tunnel is now at the top of King's Cross near the famous Coca-Cola sign.
Sure.
So we lived there in the 60s, and then my father got a housing commission home, and we moved out there. So spent the best part of 20 years in Green Valley and Liverpool.
And that's where you probably would say you're from, as far as your area, where you kind of became a man, let's say.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever became a man. I'm still a boy at heart.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not. 60 in body, 20 in mind. But yeah, I guess so. If people say, where did you grow up? I'm proud to say I grew up in Green Valley.
Yep,
I'm proud to say I'm a Liverpool boy.
Liverpool, yeah.
I've never hesitated in saying that, simply because you should be humble in where you came from.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Absolutely.
So it it was. Yeah, that's my background, to answer your question. Right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Liverpool. You might want to, thank you for that, my brother. Otherwise, you'll probably get distracted. It'll never stop. Yeah, I can't imagine. A very busy man, and which makes today's show even more important to me. Because I know time is of the essence, my friend.
That's all right.
But so myself also from the southwest, so I can definitely relate on the hardships of what it is to migrate into that area and do the best you can with the within the environment and the surrounds.
And you went to my high school, I believe. Right?
I did, yeah. Well, funny you say that, because you told me just before that you went to Ashcroft High.
Correct.
And the first high school that I went to in Australia in 1991 was actually Ashcroft. I went there as English as a second language. It was the only spot that they could find for me, so I used to have to travel over from Fairfield, which is not that far, but it was a good bus ride. And I spent a term at the Ashcroft, and I told a story to one of our other guests, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that I remember an ambulance parked outside the high school almost permanently.
Correct.
It was quite rough in those days.
Yeah, well.
So, there's a lot of crazy things going on.
It's, you drive past that school now and it's barbed wired almost, around it. But
shame.
When I went to that school, I was there in Ashcroft from 72 to 77. I finished what is today called Year 12, which was sixth form.
Yep.
And in those days, very little. Today, it's almost 100% of students go to Year 12.
Yeah.
When I was at school, it was 10% of students went on from Year 10 to Year 12.
Yep.
Everyone left in Year 10 to do a trade or work in the bank.
Yes.
With which, in those days, you aspired to be a bank teller.
Yes.
Nowadays, you're lucky if you find a bank teller.
Yes. Right? Very true.
So everyone was going to be a bank teller. And I remember going into the Commonwealth Bank in Liverpool there in Macquarie Street, and there was without a word of a lie, there would have been 25 to 30 tellers in a row. Just insane.
Yeah.
But
everything was done in person.
Everything. So it was a rough and tough high school.
Sure.
I mean, if it's tough now, I can assure you, I don't think it was any tougher than it was when we were there.
Yeah.
A lot of stories I could tell you.
The socioeconomic reality of the region hasn't changed that much, and it breeds a certain kind of young man.
And we had no money. No one had any money, to be honest with you. Literally. Everyone was had a tough life. But I don't regret it. Of
course not.
I got some great memories. We still have our reunions. We just had we finished in 77, so it's like over 40 years. But we're due to have one again next year. But I tell you, there's probably 70% of of our year 12 still get together, which is
That's
amazing
amazing.
at these
Yeah.
reunions, which is not unheard
Yeah, that's
of in
amazing.
most schools.
Yeah.
The other 30%, well, they either died of a drug overdose or committed suicide or
Yeah,
some awful thing
yeah.
happened to them in life. But
True.
but we still, we've got a page that we follow social media wise and post some photos. I don't have many photos from high school. I got plenty from primary school. But
Yep, we might have a look at those later. Sid.
Well,
Just warning you.
yeah, thanks for the warning. Heads up. We won't pin me out. But anyway,
If you've been good to Paulie these past few years since you've known him, he might have done you justice.
He's
Otherwise,
well, let's hope he's part of the dynamic duo. Isn't that right, Robin? Or am I Robin?
But so shout out to Ashcroft High class of 77.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some of them tuning in after they hear that the mighty Sydney Borg has been on the show. So all right, so we can definitely say that you've come from humble beginnings, and how does that young kid coming out of Ashcroft High, coming out of Green Valley, which is rough and tumble as you have just said, develop into the entrepreneur that you are today, with lots of success and a long successful track record in hospitality and all these other areas?
Well, it's a good question, and you try and put your lifetime into a small, within a few minutes, right?
Sure.
But as much as when you went to school, you didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Right? You wanted
enough.
to get the hell out. But,
Yeah.
when I was just before my year 10 exams, my father passed away suddenly. So it was a massive shock to myself and the family. It was literally a month before my year 10 exams in 1975. And it feels like it was yesterday because it came out of nowhere. That was probably one of the deciding points in my growing up, probably quicker than I should have. I didn't get to have much of a teenager young life. Mum was still at home. She was a typical Mediterranean housewife at home, cooking and looking after the family and doing a great job at that. And but someone had to take the reins. I still had a younger sister. My older brother and sister were married and had their own families, and so I had to grow up pretty fast. 1973 to 75, I was already working in security at Marconi Soccer Club.
Wow, Marconi.
At Bosley Park, when it was just bush out there.
I know the place very well.
It was bush, man, and I was in security there with my father and my brother-in-law, Murray, and we all worked the weekends there. And in those days, you had to be 18, of course, as it is today, and I was 15, but I was able to create. We had typewriters, not computers, and you could get on there and you could retype your birth certificate and change the date, and made myself 18 years of age, and so I was able to get a job at the club. So that even by default made me grow up quicker, because my surrounding friends and work colleagues were already 3 years at least older. So then my father passed away. That pushed me even further to grow up even faster. And you know what? We were hungry. We had no money. My father had no money in the bank anyway, so we had no income. Legacy in those days looked after us. Legacy is a fantastic organisation in this country.
It's a charity. Yeah?
Wonderful organisation, and particularly to parents whose fathers served in the military, obviously, which is what Legacy stands for.
Sure.
And they helped us, and I'll forever be grateful to them. But either way, we needed money and we needed to eat. At 15, I still didn't have a driver's license. Obviously, I couldn't drive to the shops or anything, but I still did. Yeah. My father's cars were parked in the garage after he passed away, and we had a Fiat 500 Cinquecento in those days, a Bambino, and an old Humber Vogue, which I still have. But I used to jump in that Fiat and drive to the shops to pick up the meat and the vegetables and drive back again quietly. Sure. And you could do it in those days. You damn well hell wouldn't do it now. But so that made me grow up, and the need to get some part-time jobs. So I worked at Marconi. I was selling flowers at Liverpool Westfields when it first opened. So I was selling flowers on a Saturday morning at a flower stall I had there. On a Sunday, I would drive to the Apia Soccer Club when it was still the Apia Football Club then, in an old Bedford 3-speed gelato truck, and I was selling gelato ice cream and serving it out of a cone. And some crazy stories I can tell you in those days about what the Greeks used to do to me because I was in an Italian truck. But
feel free to elaborate if you wish to.
Yeah.
We've got all the time in the world.
Well, there was one particular day we were at Apia Soccer Club and we were playing what was called Sydney Olympic in those days.
Yes,
so
of course.
The teams were all very much,
of course, there's still the ethnic
nationally
names.
ethnic.
Yeah.
And they'd lost, and Apia had won, and I remember I was serving ice cream, and I just turned around and I felt the truck moving all of a sudden, and a whole bunch of angry Greeks literally uplifted my Bedford truck and tipped me on my side.
Wow.
Ice cream and everything, cones everywhere, because it was an Italian flag on an Italian gelato truck. So, but anyway, that just
reminds me of South America.
Yeah, they'll do it. They'll do it. But.
Yeah.
So I was doing that. I was doing electrical work. And at high school, back to your original question on this, Rafa, at high school I developed a knack for photography. And I was already filming in old 8mm movies. My father and I used to take film, develop it, splice it.
Interesting.
Put the sound stripe on it, put our own sound effects on movies.
Okay.
I've still got all that equipment.
Wow.
Still got my 8mm projectors and cameras. And so I was able to... And my father was a mechanical engineer, so I always followed him and watched what he was doing, learned how to repair engines, pull them down, do valve grind, decokes, blah, blah, blah. And then electrical work, I could solder transistor radios at board level, and I could make amplifiers. I remember winning a science project at Ashcroft High School because I built my own first amplifier. And I've still got that. I've still got that project on a little circuit board. And so I could repair, and I worked out a way how to remove certain transistors out of a transistor 6 radio that we all had when we were kids listening to the music, and if I took certain transistors out, I could boost the power of the radio significantly. And what I did was I started charging 50 cents to do that at school, and I had all these guys and friends who used to come to me with their transistor radios, and I used to go home and solder and remove, and all of a sudden this radio had significantly more power. So I was making a little bit of cash out of that. Then I had access to some stock of watches, the old Timex watch. I had Timex watches, 1975. I had the first calculators when they first came out. The first General Electric hair straighteners, they used to put water in them, and hair dryers when they first came out by General Electric. Okay. So I had this little supply,
sure, and
I was selling those at school to students, but more importantly, to school teachers.
Wow, I didn't expect that.
So I still, at our reunion, I still had teachers turning up only a couple of years ago to our 40th reunion, and we're still wearing the same Timex watch I sold them
Unbelievable.
in 1976.
Wow.
So I was doing okay. I was repairing the projectors at the school. They'd ring me up, not ring me up, here we go, ring me up, but they'd send the messenger boy from the office, Sid, you're required at front office, and I'd go there and say, we've got a problem with this projector, can you fix it? Can you re-splice the 16mm film? So I'd do all those things. So it gave me flexibility. My friends were all at Marconi Club, most of them at that stage, as well as my school friends. I was driving to school, I had my little Fiat 500. There's only a few mates had cars in those days, an old Morris 850 and a couple of other. There was a good mate of mine had a Sigma, a Mitsubishi Sigma. We did some crazy things in those days with our cars, but I was allowed to park inside because the teachers I'd sold them to equipment.
Watches.
Yeah. So I could park in the teacher's car park as well. I didn't have to park out in the street. So I had a thing going there.
Sure.
So it went. You know what? It's funny. I went through having a real tough time at school as a WOG boy.
Yeah.
To moving that whole thing around and becoming a small businessman with a good network and a bunch of WOG boys behind me that if I got threatened anymore, we could handle it our way.
Yeah, well, I think that's that story has been repeated over and over across Australia over the decades. The WOGs or the ethnics, whether they be Asian background or whatever, kind of having to unite to
Absolutely.
to protect themselves from whatever was going on. But so we can see that there's some entrepreneurial spirit there from the beginning, Sid. And I think almost like perhaps you were born with it. Who knows? But it seems like the death of the old man catapulted you into manhood, into having to mature. And so what would be of note the first business ventures or jobs or whatever led you on to the next stage in life, closer to where you are nowadays?
Well, I guess, I don't look at it too much when I look back, but when I think about it, through the photography, I went and set up my own small little business doing weddings in 8mm. Whilst people were going out there with their SLR cameras,
Sure.
and they wanted photographs, they always wanted a movie.
Yeah.
So I set up a small little business,
Yeah.
and we would go around and I would take 8mm movie and then edit it and then deliver it and show them, and I was making money there. So that was probably the first small business I had.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I adopted my dad's name and created it as a company, because when we used to make our 8mm films and do the little edits, we used to put all these letters on boards and then film them in still frame processes. He had a company called Atlam Photographics. It used to be produced by Alfa and Borg, Atlam Photographics. Well, Atlam back to front is Malta.
Ah, okay.
So so that was my first little company.
Sure.
But then, I finished school, went on to uni and did a degree there and did other things. But I then went and worked for companies. I did a mechanical engineering trade at Cummins Diesel Engine Company, one of the biggest engine companies in the world. And I did a full management scholarship. I had a management scholarship with them where they taught me every single facet of the company, from opening to closing to cleaning to spare parts to, repairing on engines to whatever was necessary. Every single thing that an employee did in that company, I was literally forced to do that for about 6 months, each one. So it gave me a complete oversight and an understanding of what everybody does. That was invaluable for me.
Very interesting way to get someone started in a company, because it's almost like they're giving you the blueprint to start your own thing.
Absolutely.
Yes, I don't think they do that anymore nowadays. Yeah.
They don't.
No.
It was invaluable, and the then managing director took to me as if I was his son and really made sure that he nurtured me all the way through.
Yeah.
And I did that for 5 years at Cummins Diesel, and then I left. I didn't leave. I was made redundant, actually. Cummins Diesel were bought out by a British company called Blackwood Hodge, and there was quite a large redundancy on, and I was one of the boys that fell. So, and then I went through a crazy period there for about a year and a half. I was selling cars at a Toyota dealership in Liverpool, Peter Williamson Toyota. I was selling marking equipment, which was before just at the beginning of when food products had to have date stamps on them.
Oh, okay. Used by dates, yeah.
So I was working for a company that was one of the first companies that developed that technology, and I used to go around and I'd sell this date stamping technology. So I did that for a little while. So I was repping. I think right from school days, I had the gift of the gab. I could talk and sell, as they say, ice to Eskimos nowadays. But
yes.
But selling was where I was strong in relationship building. I'm going to step back a little bit there in your question originally with the school, and you said what made you want to strive to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about school and Ashcroft High School. The teachers there were they were great. I had good teachers and I had bastards. That's what I'm going to call them. They were vindictive, evil people. But some of the teachers that I got along with, that I think I got along with, and I respected, and they respected me as a student. But they used to say to me, Borgie, you're never going to amount to anything. Right? You're never going to amount to anything. You'll never get there, mate. You can think and do whatever you want, but you're never going to make it. I'll never forget that.
Yes.
Because that was a motivator. That wasn't a demotivator.
No.
That wasn't something to put me into depression and feel bad about myself and think I'm a loser. They wanted me to look like a loser, but the more they did that, the more I fought even harder and said, one day, if you're still alive, you're going to eat your words. and when you see what I've done, and that was, there were key points in life. There were keys in life.
Yeah.
And I would say that I would be reminded of that through year 11 and 12. That hey, Borgie, you'll never amount to anything.
Yeah.
And even my girlfriend at school, it was a challenge. Funnily enough, that my old maths teacher used to say, Borgie, you're never going to get that girl. There's the footballers, there's everyone that likes her. She's one of the, without doubt, she's probably one of the best catchers in Ashcroft High School. You'll never get her. Well, when I finished year 12, we were going out, and we went out for 5 years.
My man. One of the first long list. One of the first on the long list of victims in Sydney Borg's love life, I'm sure.
Don't start bringing out skeletons in the closet, man, because there's not one skeleton. There'll be a cemetery.
I promise I won't. No, but you hear that over and over in many people's lives. They speak about that one person that told them, "You will amount to nothing," and that was that fuel that burnt the fire, which many say credit to the success, because it is very much about that emotional, mental driving thing, the good and the bad, and ultimately, I guess people either let those things defeat them, or in your case, use it as I was saying, as fuel to drive.
So it went on, Raf. It went on, and you know what? My parents are both passed away now, and my brother's passed away. But even my mum, God bless her, she didn't know much. She didn't go to school. She had children and all the rest of it, and she looked after her own brothers and sisters back in Malta. But I remember when I was made redundant at Cummins Diesel, and I was doing these bits and pieces jobs. She used to read the Liverpool Leader, the old newspaper Liverpool, and she found a job there, and it said salesman wanted for Main Nicholas. Now, Main Nicholas in the 80s was the armour guard trucks.
Ah, okay. I think I've seen that name.
Everyone used to get paid with cash in a brown envelope.
Yep.
Everyone got their pay in a brown envelope, right, with their pay slip. And Armour Guard and a company called Main Nicholas were one of the biggest security money movers around. And she found this job in Liverpool. And she said, Sid, you should go for this job. I said, Mum, what do I know about? She said, it doesn't matter what you know about. Whatever it is you go, you quickly adapt and you can do it, son. Go. You need a job. So I went and applied for this job. And the guy I went and saw was the sales manager at Liverpool, across the road from the Liverpool police station. And his name was Sid as well.
Uh-huh.
So his name was Sid. I went in, I was there. I was 2 minutes in that interview and I got the job.
Uh-huh.
He said, I'll see you tomorrow. And it was to sell a product called computer pay. And in those days, we didn't have PCs. Computers were mainframes or small mini computers, actually. And this was in 1982, to be exact. So it was to sell computerized payroll. So they were going away from the old manual books to a computerized payroll by bureau, which meant you filled out the docket, you sent it electronically, and then Main Nicholas, called Computer Pay in those days, would process the pay electronically. It was the new innovation.
The beginning of.
Literally, the beginning of. And he said, I'll see you in 2 days' time. Come in on Friday. You're starting your job straight away. I'm giving you the carrying bar territory. I said, all right, boss, I'll see you then, Sid. So I went home and said, Mum, you're not going to believe it, I got the job. I said, I've got to go out and buy a couple of suits. I need to get down to Lowe's quickly. Right? So anyway, I go and buy a couple of suits. I get in my car and I drive to this place. And I go up to the third floor. And when I got out, the third floor opened and there was nothing on the floor. It was empty, vacant. And you can imagine, my heart's just about ready to jump out of my throat.
What the hell's going on?
What the hell? So I go to the second floor, it's empty. I go to the first floor, there's someone there, and I go, is this Main Nicholas? I said, we're not Main Nicholas, I forget what it was then. And I said, Jesus, what's happened, right? So I go back up to the third floor. I said, I think I've hit the wrong floor. And I go back up to the third floor. This bloody place is empty. I walk out, it's empty, the whole floor. I go back downstairs, I look at the building. It's the building. So I go to a public phone, because there was no mobile phones.
Of course.
And I ring my mum. I said, Mum, you're not going to believe this. I think I've been set up. This company's interviewed me. They've employed people and they've vacated in the last 2 days. There's no one here. She said, son, you can't be right. She said, you can't be right. How could they do that? So while I'm talking in the phone booth, I'm looking at my building, I'm looking next door, and there's 2 identical buildings. So I've gone, I'll see you later, Mum, and I've hung up. I go next door, get in the lift,
False start.
get up on the 3rd floor, and there's mate Nicholas.
God.
I got myself in a hell of a lot of trouble because I was late for work on my first day.
First day, yeah.
So
not a good impression.
So I spent 5 years there, and within the first year I became the #1 national sales rep for the entire Mate Nicholas Group, Australia wide, and for the ensuing next 4 years I was untouchable.
Sure.
I got to travel the world first class on conferences. Took my then girlfriend, soon to be wife at that stage, around with me everywhere.
Sure.
We lived like little kings, you know.
Very nice.
And then that just moved on from there. I then broke into technology and went into work for NEC Corporation, and I very quickly enjoyed the lifestyle of the 80s. Lots of money floating around.
What a time to be alive.
That Wolf of Wall Street movie is true in every sense
Sure.
of what we did and what happened in the lifestyle. I had my little BMW. I had the first car phone when they first came out, mounted in the car. The prefix in those days was 007, which was awesome.
Yep.
Not 04, 08. It was 018 afterwards, but it was 007 and then whatever your number was.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the Australian prefix for mobile numbers. Well, not mobile, you know. And that car phone, if you had a car phone in the 80s, you were it.
Yeah.
There was, didn't matter what your car you put it in.
Yeah.
You could have put it in a Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
You had a car phone.
All
right? And it would ring.
Yeah.
And you'd go,
yeah, that's right.
Who's there?
Yeah.
Dick Tracy calling Go Gomez, come in.
Yeah,
right?
I get you.
So it was like, hi. And you'd get people to ring you if you had a girlfriend, right? It's
of
like,
course.
Brother, you got to ring this.
Good impression. Nowadays, much of your trade is in hospitality. Are you still involved with technology?
Absolutely. I still own the oldest computer company in Australia.
Wow.
The oldest. Officially.
So is that manufacturing, assembling, serving?
It was all hardware integration in those days. It was all networks.
Yep.
It used to be my customer when I was at NEC. The company I bought and own today was my client.
What's the name of the company?
PCS Australia.
Interesting.
It used to stand for Photo Set Computer Services. And that company was owned by Kerry Packer, started by Sir Frank Packer.
All right, the old man.
And PCS Australia stood for Photo Set Computer Services. It did all the typesetting for the Packer Australian Consolidated Press magazines before desktop publishing came in, before any of that.
Sure.
And all the dark rooms were there and everything. And I worked with them and turned that company into NEC's largest computer dealership in Australia. And it was that for the next 23 years. In 1991, Kerry Packer wanted to divest of any company that was non-press related.
Sure.
And PCS Australia had become this huge IT company, and we were selling computers to every government department. I had won every contract in every government department of New South Wales, corrective services, police, Department of Health, you name it, planning, attorney generals. We owned it all. We owned it all. And there's photos of me in front of a jumbo jet with the nose cone open with 30,000 computers being delivered, personal computers.
Wow.
So and as I said, that was in that mid to late 80s. And in 91, he wanted to divest, and the then managers of PCS Australia wanted to buy that company and move it, or Kerry Packer was going to shut it down. That was the end of it. So the deal had to be done at arm's length to avoid any capital gains benefits at that stage, and to make the deal transparent and seamless. And I agreed to do it. I was then working for NEC still. It was a risky move by me.
Of course.
Because it invoked what's called a conflict of interest.
Yes, I'm sure.
They were my customer.
Yeah.
I was about to become a director and shareholder, so I needed to disclose it. I disclosed it to my manager at the time and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. If I don't do this, we are going to lose the biggest customer we have. the repercussions will be unbelievable.
Yeah.
We're talking in those days 20 million a year turnover.
Yeah, which is
Huge in the IT sector in those days.
nowadays it will be what, 200.
Exactly.
Yeah.
10 times.
Yeah.
So I notified them, told them all about what was happening. I said, I don't want it to cost me my job. Here I am as a senior account manager within the number one computing company, not just in Australia, but in the world at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. We went ahead, and the deal had to go through me. So I actually was in the room with Kerry Packer, and we signed the purchase agreement, and I bought the company. And immediately upon buying the company, transferred shares to the other 6 existing managers, come directors of the company. So we became a team. And moved to William Street. We moved from Park Street. We were in Elizabeth, corner of Park and Elizabeth Street, and moved to William Street up at King's Cross. And that company today is still the oldest IT company in Australia.
Any sort of time spent with Kerry Packer, or not really? It was just a sign.
No, very little time. I'd met him a few times. It's about all I could probably say.
Sure. Yeah. Just business.
Interesting gentleman. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
Very cold, calculated.
Yeah.
His way or the highway.
Yeah, definitely.
And but and that was the change in '91. By 1996, I was the only partner in that business. I bought out everybody.
So good times. Successful times.
Good times.
Yep.
Good times.
And family. That's when family also begins to be a thing, no?
Yeah. Married in '86, and my 2 living treasures were born in '88 and '93. Lauren and Chanel.
Sure.
Without doubt, still the best things in my life, and will always be.
Sure. And very proud father.
And no matter what I have and what I own, there is nothing more important. Nothing.
Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Chanel.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will be tuning in as well, for sure.
Hopefully.
Great job you've done as a father and as a parent with those ladies. I speak for myself and the guys. We've crossed paths and we've worked together here and there over the years, and much love and respect. Well liked, ladies. So good on you, brother. You've done a great job with those girls.
Thank you, Rafa. It's reciprocal.
And
hospitality.
Yeah, the big H.
Yeah.
Which if people don't really know, I mean, hospitality can drain the lifeblood out of you, literally, because the amount of work that's involved into presenting a plate of food onto a table in a restaurant is no easy feat. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. How does that story play out from IT, from computers? Great success in them. How do we end up in hospitality? I mean, with award-winning restaurants and some very famous franchises, where's that bridge? How do we get to that point?
We got to it purely because I used to go and dine there.
Yes.
So in a nutshell,
yes.
Lauren was at university at UWS, and she got a job working at Hooters at Parramatta at that stage, which is the flagship store. It was the only store, actually.
Yeah.
She was working there, and I would go and take my customers to Hooters. It was around the corner from my office at Granville. Sure. Because we'd moved from William Street out to Granville at that stage. I got sick and tired of paying rent, and we bought an office block there. While I was doing business, obviously in those days, wining and dining your customers was critical.
As you do.
Yeah, and
still is,
fortunately.
Sure.
So I used to go and dine there. It was comfortable. The then owner of the business, who will remain nameless for good reason, had enticed me and said, "Look, I want to expand. I've Googled you. I see what you've done, where you are. You're on this board of directors. You're on that board. You're a president of this, that, blah, blah, blah. Would you consider investing? You'll get your money back in 12 months on your return on investment, and you could move into hospitality." And I was sailing pretty comfortable. Everything was good. And I really didn't need it, but I went, what the hell? I think if I can get my money back in 12 months and then repeatedly get return on that afterwards, I'll give it a shot. And the first one was to build a Hooters at Penrith. And we agreed on how much to invest, and I went ahead and did that. I mean, the story after that is almost a circus to come down when I think about it. But, I basically, Rafa, I sat back quite a bit while we were building, Campbelltown came after Penrith. So Penrith came first. Not long after that, Campbelltown came into play. And during the time of building Campbelltown, we were building Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville at Darling Harbour.
Yes.
Which is where we crossed paths.
Indeed.
Fortunately.
Indeed.
And so we had jumped on a very fast growth path, which, you know, whilst I wasn't directly involved and I was financially backing this whole thing, as I later found out, is a recipe for disaster. And it's happened too many times. It doesn't matter who the chain is that we've seen come and go in Australia, but every time everyone, all of a sudden 10, 12 restaurants, 4, 5, 6 restaurants or shops or...
Overstretch.
You do that without sound business economics and business sense and you know, walking the walk, talk the talk, and managing the business, not just... And at micromanagement level, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone tells me.
Yeah.
I really don't care because it's a fact.
Yeah.
And you know, we were heading that way, and in fact, we did head that way because, you know, we built at that point. We then jumped into Gold Coast and we jumped into Townsville. So within 2 years,
wow,
bang, 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 bang. Now Margaritaville was a huge investment, $3.5 million store, massive drain. And
all happening at the same time.
All happening at the same time, and each store has a cost of about 1.8 million fit out.
Sure. Wow. That's
and
a
as
lot
I
of
say,
money, my friend.
I later found out that myself and an unbelievably close friend, who I think I call him a brother, as I do you. There are very few people, and I count them on my hand, that I would say that about. And a gentleman by the name of Mike Pruitt, who was the CEO and still is today of Chanticleer Holdings, who owned Hooters South Africa division, several Hooters in America, and a whole chain of hamburger outlets. We met each other by default to find out that both of us, we didn't even know we were partners in Hooters Australia. And we were getting taken to the cleaners by what we thought was our then business partner, who was a crook, in a nutshell. So we had to make some quick decisions, a lot of legals involved, Supreme Court's involved, and we finally grasped and grabbed hold of the business.
Yeah.
And at probably the toughest time you could ever want to in Australia, hospitality, as you well and truly know, you're as experienced as I am on it, it has taken a massive dive in the last 2 years.
Yes,
massive
indeed.
dive.
Yep.
And then the catastrophic fires, the rain bombs, called floods. We call them floods. Today the press want to call them rain bombs, for God's sake. And then the coronavirus sealed the fate of hospitality.
Yes.
And
here we are.
Very quickly today, you know, we're looking at a small version of what we had 2 years and 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Tough game.
Yeah, I think it's a tough game at the best of times. You know, there will always be successful people in every sort of sector, but food and beverage, regardless of how well you're doing, I think it's very taxing, and just managing all the variables and all those things. You know a lot more about that than I do, but we have spoken to a few people already on the show, and they've mentioned about you know, hospitality, how tough it is, and all the details that goes into it all. And even more so when you're working with people that perhaps you shouldn't be working with, which seems to be the case in your story. But what I do appreciate is that through it all, you've held your head up high, and I've never seen you or heard of you doing the wrong thing when you probably had the chance to kind of counter by doing the wrong thing. Yeah, I've never seen or heard of that, and everyone that we speak to speaks very highly of you, Sid, which again shows the man you are. But I want to bring it to Margaritaville. I'm going to say 2000 New Year's Eve 2013-14.
Yeah.
So I walked into the venue. Lockouts were coming, and I saw the line drawn across the water. I made some inquiries. People said, yep, Pyrmont is definitely not the CBD. It's not going to be affected. So that's where my promoter nightclub events brain started thinking, okay, cool. We need to do something like this on this side. And at the same time, you know, Darling Harbour being a destination, as it still is for New Year's, it seemed to be a really good fit. After some convincing, the venue agreed to let me run the New Year's Eve event. I remember it was a carnival type masquerade party thing with Brazilian dances and everything.
Fantastic.
It was a really good night. It was fun. It was successful. Brilliant. Everyone enjoyed it. So now the venue says to me, let's keep going. Let's do something else. And that begins our relationship. I was the promoter at your venue in Darling Harbour, which of course was Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville, known to everyone as Margaritaville, and previously it was called Doc's Hotel, and I think Edamoga Pub before that.
That's right.
And we had a really, really good, really successful run, and we've got some great memories. And I think, Paulie, was that where you joined the company as well, from memory?
Yeah, it was Margaritaville, but when I used to walk past it,
yep.
I thought it was actually a buffet place.
Because of Jimmy Buffett.
Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
Jimmy Buffet.
Yeah, Jimmy Buffet. Yeah, trme. That
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I mean, me as a nightclub promoter, it's great memories. I remember closing sometimes 6:30, 7 in the morning with the sun out.
And we're frantically cleaning the sticky floors.
Well, the place didn't look the best at those hours of the night, I must admit. After a long night of partying, I also remember doing World Cup Carnival there in 2014.
That's right, I remember all night.
Yep, Brazilian World Cup, and we literally ran for not 30 days, because in the FIFA World Cup you do have, especially in week 3 and 4, you have those nights that are off. But I remember sleeping in my car in the car park.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we would have to go at it the next day, or because the cameras were coming in to film, because we had Channel 10 and 7 and 9 doing crosses there, because of, we used to put the drummers on outside and everything. So great times, great memories. And
I wish we still had it, Raf. I mean, I have to say that
definitely,
the relationship you and I built quickly after we took control of Margaritaville. Yeah. I was extremely, and I still am to this day, sad that we lost what we had. Indeed. And it was interesting that, and you know this, that within a very short period of time, with your input and your, I'd almost call it intuition, gut feel about what's required from a nightclub running operation, which, I'd only ever worked as a bouncer in nightclubs and security in the old disco days, but you were much more up to it with the new stuff. But we had become extremely well known as
most definitely
one of the best venues. People were queuing up outside.
Most definitely.
But the one thing that was important to me is that the local constabulary there and licensing and everyone used to come up and say, you guys are running a tight ship.
Yep.
Everything's run extremely professionally.
Yeah.
No hiccups, no problems.
Yeah.
If there is, you handle it very quickly in-house, put to bed, and no instances compared to other venues.
Yeah.
So, we very quickly had a great reputation there.
Yeah. It was a very good run.
Yeah.
Very good run.
It really was. And I remember we were pushing through so many margaritas that your team and my team with Jay and Chanel and the team back there, and Jay still works for me today, right, as my general manager at Hooters Parramatta.
Yeah, shout out to Jay.
My British bulldog,
Pocket Rocket.
Yeah, and we developed a system where we could use the small empty kegs, and we had margaritas on tap, if you remember, right? So
I definitely remember.
To get them out faster.
I remember running out of vodka. And I remember, Paulie, was that you?
Yeah, I had to go down to Watershed to get a couple of bottles of vodka.
Yeah, so Watershed is a venue.
Did we ever pay him back?
Yeah, we did.
I'm sure we did.
We had to.
We did, yeah.
I'm sure we did. Those were definitely great times.
They were.
So, unfortunately, there was some, let's call it in-house fighting or misunderstandings, and then a decision was made and the venue was pulled. We probably don't have to go too much into that, but
there were circumstances well and truly outside our control,
out of our control.
and that's purely, to be honest with you, purely put back onto the landlord.
Yeah,
I mean, really, it was the landlords that had an issue with Margaritaville. Well, they didn't have an issue with Margaritaville. They didn't have an issue with you, Raf, your company, or myself as running the company. They were happy. They knew that we were running it absolutely professionally, and even as a restaurant, people queuing up to come and taste our food. What they had a problem with was the original business partner, that owner, and that was enough damage to see us.
Yeah, I remember the jambalaya rice.
Yeah.
I think it was there. It was very nice. It was one of my go-to dishes.
And the
that,
fajitas.
the fajitas were very nice as well. Yeah. Now, good times. Definitely good
I keep
times.
wanting to bring those back into my other restaurants, to be honest with you. I miss them greatly. But
And speaking of the other restaurants, so we're talking Hooters, which is
Mainstream
definitely
Parramatta still.
Yep, very very well known.
It's a landmark.
It is a landmark, not only here but around the world. Quite a well-known American chain. But we've also got the Woodfire Distillery.
Yeah, the Distillery Woodfire restaurant.
Distillery Woodfire.
Distillery
Thank you.
Wood. That's all right, no problem.
Thank you.
Is a it's well, for starters, it's a heritage listed site. It's a historical site, some 150 years old.
This is the place we're looking at here.
Yeah,
Award-winning restaurant. I've heard very good
now.
reviews.
3 years now, Raf. We've won most outstanding restaurant in that western part of Sydney in the Business Awards.
Sure.
Which is no mean feat. I mean, it's a great achievement. There's a lot of restaurants out there.
Yep.
Where we have had it 4 years now, and that restaurant is what we would call a fine dining restaurant in a relaxed atmosphere.
Great. We love that.
Absolutely. The produce is all fresh daily. The chefs, our executive chef and the pizzaiola, the pizza chef, we have a wood-fired pizza oven. We still make pizzas, the old Italian Roman style pizza with all imported produce and the best of ingredients.
Sure.
And I would, I have to say, we would have the best pizza in Sydney.
I would have to ask you, please, to stop speaking about the food because it is lunchtime.
Yeah, and if this short microphone picks up my tummy rumbling, we'll just say it's bad weather.
Have to do lunch after. Paul, tell me.
He's giving us the challenge.
Yeah.
He's claiming to be the best pizza in
We're going to have to.
Absolutely.
Look, all right, so I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to make a thing of it. We're going to come down. We're going to film the whole thing. We're going to film the whole experience and we're going to let the world know what the pizzas are there. But I will say this. Preempting our foray down to the distillery Woodfire, the few people that have mentioned the restaurant too that have come from out that way, they've all told me the same thing. Ooh, that place is really nice.
Yeah, it's nice to hear.
So looking forward to checking it out.
Well, one of the, I don't want to interrupt you, Rafa.
Please.
One of the things is, I've had both my daughters have grown up in my business, and in all businesses.
Yeah.
And even from when they were little kids coming to primary school and high school after college, they'd come and they'd run around my offices and run around the businesses, and they'd go on the whiteboards in the staff offices and write, hi Nick, love Chanel, your future CEO. Right? So they always, even from a young age, I'm going to be your boss one day, right?
Good on them.
But both of them put a lot of work into the distillery more than I did. It's easy for me to sit back and take the accolade and say, yeah, look, it's one of my portfolio of businesses.
Yeah.
But to be fair, both my girls have put immense effort into working those stores. In that store in particular, as they have, trying to sustain and hold on to the other Hooters stores as we structurally closed each one down.
Sure.
And what Chanel's done even through COVID-19 in the last 5 months in that store has been remarkable. And one of the successes in your business in a restaurant is you can promote social media, Instagram, Facebook, I don't care, TripAdvisor, all those things. And we've got great ratings on that store, as we have even in Hooters. But that doesn't necessarily bring in the people constantly.
No.
The most important thing in hospitality in your restaurant is when you walk up to these people and you don't say, how's the food? Is everything okay? Standard stupid hospitality comment.
Yes.
Is everything okay? Well, of course, out there, everything's okay or everything's going to be bloody terrible.
Yeah, that's right.
When you go up there and say, what do you think of the 60-60 chicken? What do you think of that
That's
pizza?
a question that requires an answer.
And then, exactly. But when you get that answer, you say, hey, you know what? Is this, have you been here before?
Yeah.
And they're going to say one of two things only. No, we're first timers. And my first comment is, hey, it's great to have virgins in here, right? or the second one is, no, we've been here before.
Yeah.
My comment on both of those is always, well, thank you for coming back, or thank you for choosing our restaurant.
Great.
But then I say, well, how did you hear about us if it's their first time? And the best comment you can ever have back is referral.
Most definitely. Word of mouth is the most powerful.
Family, friends, or work colleagues.
Sure.
When someone says to you, my sister or my brother or my work colleague or my cousin or my whatever my best buddy said, you got to go and check the distillery
Yeah.
out. That's a big call.
Of course.
And then the warmest thing you can hear on the way out is when they smile at you and as they walk out the door say, you know what, thank you for tonight.
Yep.
We'll be back soon.
Great.
It's not easy. How many restaurants have you ever been to and walked
No.
out and said, I'll be back, Raf?
Yeah. I actually make a point of giving restaurants and similar feedback. If I've really had a good time and appreciated the food and everything, I think it's important to part with a, guys, congratulations, well done, we really appreciate it, we'll be back.
Absolutely.
I think that's important, and it's a great sign as a restaurateur, obviously.
Yeah, and that's where you start measuring your success.
Yeah.
And whether that will carry you through what
Sure.
is today the toughest of times I've ever seen in all my life.
It's-
I've never seen it. I've been through 2 recessions and the GFC and everything else and lived in poverty basically.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything quite like we've got now.
So before we probably get on to what it is current day issues, and because I know you and I are both very opinionated on that, and rightfully so,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
So we've got the distillery, Woodfire, we've got the Hooters. On the food side, we don't have any more restaurants or anything lying around
And really,
that we don't know about.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said restaurants and not things like children.
Might come back to that.
I'm only kidding. But seriously, no, certainly not on the food. And
Sure.
and you know what, Raf, I'd be very hesitant.
Yes.
In I'd almost say you'd have to put me in a mental asylum.
Yep,
if
I don't blame
said,
you.
You want to open another restaurant?
Yeah, I don't blame
certainly
you.
in Australia anyway.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that on so many levels. As I was saying before, the stories that I've heard from insiders is that the food and beverage is extremely difficult to trade in.
It's almost history.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's still people doing well, and it's constantly being reinvented. And actually, the food scene in Sydney, the quality of the food and what we have on available nowadays, I think is unbelievable. Whether or not people are truly making back what they deserve out of their passion and their investments, I don't know. I think definitely today, where we stand, 2020, I think it would definitely be very tough to be doing much.
And things are changing. I can tell you now, I'm talking to restaurant owners who are changing their restaurant, reducing the size of it because people aren't going out to dine.
Yes.
And they're starting to cut their store up and develop drive-throughs.
Yeah.
So even well-known established restaurants
Yeah.
are doing a McDonald's drive-through.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunately it's a sign of where, particularly right now, 2020, but just probably generally speaking, where probably we're going as a modern society, at least in our country. I don't know about other countries, but there's a very hermit kind of lifestyle being developed.
Won't happen in Europe. Won't happen in South America.
No.
Won't happen. You're a traveller, Raf,
Yes,
just
my
like
friend.
I am.
Yes,
You travel the world. all our
Hence
life.
why I said Australia, because I don't see it happening.
Because dining out is an absolute
Sure.
guaranteed
Sure.
core ingredient of
Sure.
the lifestyle
Sure.
of people in Europe, the
Sure.
Mediterranean,
Yeah.
North Africa,
Yeah.
Middle East,
Yes.
South America.
Yeah, no, not even. Yeah, just going out, being
Absolutely.
outside. Going for a walk with your family, sitting down for an ice cream,
Absolutely.
listening to some music, some buskers or whatever,
And going to dinner at 11 o'clock at night.
and going to
ordering
dinner
your food at midnight. You can't do
and
that.
taking your time and enjoying. I think as great as a country this is, I think we've lost a bit of that quality lifestyle. I was talking to a friend of mine, sort of diehard Aussie, and he said to me, he goes, "What happened to the laid-back Aussie?
Yeah.
What happened to the?" He goes, I used to go to all different parts of Sydney. He's more so from the coast, and he used to say, and I remember seeing board shorts, no tops,
Yep.
dongs,
Yep.
beer in your hand, and just
Absolutely.
chilled. I mean, the term laid-back Aussie,
Gone.
doesn't exist.
Gone.
I mean, at least where we are, particularly in Sydney, I think it's quite a rushed, stressed, preoccupied, anxious, almost constant state that we have. As much as I don't like to admit it, or as much as I like to fight it, at least in my own life, and I think we all should, because that's not where anyone wants to be. It's almost like that's the reality. And I wonder how it is that we got to this place so quickly too, because I think, it was only a few years ago that it was totally a different thing.
But expectations is what changed it. And the chase for wanting the biggest and latest LCD TV, the latest car. I want a 2-story home, not a 1-story home. I want a theatre in my house.
Sure.
Whereas before we'd have you'd have a family room.
Yeah, I understand.
Right, where the family did sit down together and chat and watch a little bit of TV or play board games.
Sure.
That all changed. The expectations of the generation of youth today want everything now.
Yeah.
Now, when you want everything now, you have to work even harder. You've got to work faster.
Sure.
What happens is your quality of life gets left behind.
Of course.
All of a sudden, the picnics that we all used to go to in the parks and barbecue and have all the family around sitting on the floor in the grass, on the mats, and
long days.
All right, and that's gone. I mean, it's sad, and so that's gone, and the whole idea of on a weekend you'd jump in your car and you say, I'm going to go and visit Rafa. I wouldn't ring you and plan it. I'd just come and knock on your damn door.
Yeah, that's not the thing anymore.
That's gone now. It's all done by social media. Oh, are you there, bro? Yeah, I'm here, bro. Oh, yeah, I'll catch you next week. So because we've chatted supposedly on the bloody phone on Messenger, there's no need to come and knock on the door and visit you and sit down and have a drink with you anymore.
You hear
so
that.
The whole laid back approach is gone.
Yeah.
Too fast.
Very fast. Yeah, this is very true.
And we've killed quality of life, Raf.
Yeah, I will say this though. I was with a tribe of in the Amazon for 9 days in 2015, I think it was. Yeah. And they were speaking about how time is speeding up. They're much more spiritual than we are, and they spoke about it in different terms. They spoke about it that the global consciousness, if X amount of people around the world think one thing, it almost like becomes this consciousness it's adopted. So this thing about time speeding up is a big deal, and I think it has a lot to do with how stimulated our brains are nowadays, because with the phones and the social media and all the forms of media around us and this endless contact that we have with people everywhere in situation, conversation, we're not sort of ourselves, I guess we could say, yeah.
And you've the problem with social media and the mobile phone, to be honest with you, is that you're too easily contactable now. That's a big problem.
So no doubt.
Eventually you get sick of it all and you say, well, now I want some time to myself, not some time to go and visit my friends and family.
Indeed, very well said. This is a very good point that you bring up, yes. Right. So whatever time you have off, it's almost like you want to do nothing and be with nobody. Yeah, I hear you on that.
And social media, in my opinion, is not educating people. It's making them more almost dumber than they were before.
Yeah,
I'm concerned about the fact that people are believing utter rubbish that's being put on there.
Yes,
and I just wish they weren't so gullible.
Yeah, I think the issue there is social media is supposed to be bringing us closer, and I think perhaps in its infancy it did, because it was a way for you to share photos with, your uncle in Canada and your auntie in Europe, and it was a way for your high school year reunion for everyone to stay in touch. But it's morphed into something completely different. Yeah, quite evil, because also these companies have understood that they get the most reaction out of people through, let's say, negativity, not through positive feel-good stories, but through stories that cause fear, anger, and anxiety, which then cause people to react much more so than the puppy or a love story or whatever. But that probably brings us on to where we are today, Sid, because 2020, if I would have told you last year where we would be today,
you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, well, you would have called me a lunatic, and you probably would never speak to me again and try and get me committed. But here we are.
We'd be together there.
Yeah, we would be. Here we are. We've got Look, I guess if I was to probably take a step back from the whole COVID thing and sort of try and look at it from a bigger picture, my belief, I do not even need to go to the argument about is it China, is it man-made or not, is it part of this huge global conspiracy, in all of that, or is it 5G? Because you know that there's a lot of information there, and I think a lot of it has some legs. But putting all those things aside, I don't think any government should have the power to tell anyone you can't work, you can. You need to stay home. Absolutely. And you don't. I don't believe in any of those restrictions.
Absolutely.
I think their role should be strictly to advise with all of the information available, not just the one that they've chosen is the flavor of the day, because we have had flavor in the days before, like tobacco,
Absolutely.
once and even asbestos is another great example. All these people speaking about, what do you know? You're not a health expert, but I know enough in history to know that health experts not only get it wrong, but they're also extremely compromised as money corrupts everything.
And which health experts?
That's what I'm getting at.
Because invariably, the government that wants to push its own agenda,
indeed,
will have the medical experts that align themselves
100%.
with that political party, not in the interests of the people.
Trust me, Sid, if you wanted to find a study that says that eating pizza at the distillery wood fire 3 times a week is good for your health and will prolong your life by 20 years, if you had the money, you will find someone, you will pay for that study, and you will get the result that you want.
You will.
That's the thing that I
just
don't
give me the contact, will you?
Yeah, not a problem, Paulie. Email it to Sid. But so that's I think the issue that we're facing, where
Absolutely.
These governments have got absolute drunk with power.
Yeah. Fanatical.
They've been given the mandate by big pharmaceutical, which is an extremely powerful and wealthy arm of the world corporate elite.
People will never, ever understand how powerful.
Yep, indeed. I mean, I've got a policy when it comes to all of these things called follow the money. That's kind of how my critical thinking...
I watch it.
Yeah, that's how I kind of operate. So whenever a problem arises or an idea is put forward, particularly by the usual suspects, the governments or mass media or, certain corporations, I always try and see, okay, cool, where's this flow of money leading to? And after all the fear and anxiety and everything that they whipped up, you start seeing, and this is strictly about the money side, you start seeing that governments around the world are investing, as we speak, billions and billions of dollars into vaccines.
Absolutely.
And
technology behind it.
And the technology. But just staying with pharma, I think it's quite easy to see, and I'm cynical. I've always been quite cynical, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but
it's healthy.
I think so. The same people that have the power to create the problem in labs in Wuhan or wherever they may be, labs that received $3.5 million from Barack Obama not too long before all this shit happened. The same people that have the only people that have the power to create this problem are the only people that are then going to go and make all of this money from that same problem, which I believe they've created.
I'll give you an analogy.
Sure.
Antivirus software.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I've been using that one a lot too.
Antivirus software. It's a well-known fact that the minute you go and buy the new software, there's already another virus out there.
Of course.
Right, that needs to be updated. And the same programmers
Indeed.
that are developing the antivirus have got the experts out there developing the viruses. If you can find a virus, if you can create an IT virus, you are immediately employed at great money.
Sure.
By the application writers themselves.
Well, you know a little bit about that world, and I've read a little bit into it, and hence why the name Bill Gates comes up a lot.
I used to have meetings with Bill Gates.
Wow, okay.
when he just before it became Windows, when he had MS-DOS.
Uh-huh.
We used to go to his quarterly meetings. It used to be a round table of about 10 of us. I used to sit next to Bill Gates on the round table.
Sure.
Up at the Hyatt Hotel at King's Cross. That's
Very
where we used to
interesting.
meet.
What was that like?
Interesting. He was a bit more of a
Nerd?
nerd at those days. He used
Sure.
to wear the checkered woolen vest and short sleeve shirt, and he was a gentleman. We used to talk to each other, but in those days when I was at NEC Corporation, we were one of the biggest manufacturers of IT equipment worldwide, and so I had the privilege of going to those quarterly meetings and sitting and listening to him, and before when MS-DOS became Windows, and then
Who would have thought,
change of IBM,
what he's doing to the world today,
Yeah.
what he became, and now consequently what he's doing to the world today. But Paulie, did you say you had a time machine? Maybe we can throw Sid in it. We can go back to that meeting, dispose of Bill Gates, and come back to 2020.
Yeah.
Can you make that happen, brother?
No, Bill Gates is our friend.
Well, that's a disclaimer.
Absolutely.
We don't want to
It's
get
almost
kicked.
what they call an oxymoron. Bill Gates and friend.
Yeah, exactly. I think by all intents and purposes, the man is evil. I mean, even in the most friendly of chummy of interview scenarios and situations, it just oozes out of him
There's something else to it, and we all know.
yeah, I don't even have a word for what it is that I feel and I see when that man is speaking, and his wife too.
Simply put, with 2020 and COVID and
Yes.
all the rest of it, you made a point that you're not. It doesn't matter whether it came from China, whether
Indeed.
it was natural, whether
Sure.
it was man-made.
The reaction is what
the 5G and everything.
Yeah.
It's what the Australian government
Yes.
and governments
yes,
are doing to this country.
yes, indeed,
Unnecessarily,
completely unnecessary,
unqualified.
unqualified.
All right? Totally unqualified, and putting fear into people about a vaccine. My theory is this: it's pretty simple. Why do you need a vaccine
Sure.
for a virus that has a 99.4% recovery rate?
Thank you very much.
Why?
Sure. Unaided
You
recovery
need a
rate.
vaccine for something that has a 20% recovery rate.
Sure.
As a kid, as a child, when I was small, I grew
Yep.
up with polio,
Sure.
diphtheria.
Yep.
I've lived through other diseases and SARS and
Sure.
swine flu.
Swine
I was
flu,
a victim of
yeah.
swine flu. I was hospitalised with swine
So
flu.
was I, yeah.
Yeah. Evil
Sure.
flu.
Tough,
and still
yeah.
around, by the way.
Yeah.
And out again.
Yeah.
All of these things, like forgetting polio's got a vaccine for it, but swine and SARS and influenza, none of them have got a vaccine. Everyone says, I take the flu shot, they think it's a vaccine. It is
Yeah.
not a vaccine.
Well, even if you admit that it is a vaccine, which it isn't,
You're going to recover from it.
well, not only that, we've had it for how many years,
Oh,
and flu
forever.
still affects and kills people every
Yeah.
year all over the world,
Yeah.
even much more so than this new strain coronavirus.
So why do you need a vaccine for 99.4% recovery?
Thank
It's
you
rubbish.
very much.
You don't need it.
Yeah, and then you take that further and you say, why do we need to lock down?
You don't.
Why do we need social distancing?
You don't.
Why do we need masks? I've often said, you hear the numbers being thrown around by the government to underpin this dying economy because of what they're doing to it.
Because it was in dire straits before.
Yeah. We had
It was already
we
in a
definitely-
recession.
Yeah, we
People
definitely
didn't want to admit it. We
Yeah.
were already in a recession.
I think it was that two-speed thing as well. I think some parts of the economy might have been still well, but definitely a lot of them, I mean, manufacturing, as a good example.
The undercurrent was already there.
Yeah,
the damage
most
was already
definitely.
there.
Yeah, and off the back of the Banking Royal Commission, the election
That's
the
right.
year before, which then led on to the bushfires and then the floods.
Now they've smashed it.
Yeah, so...
With a couple of lunatics in Queensland and Melbourne to add to that.
Yeah, well, that's the extreme end of the of the sword. I think that's the pointy end there.
Anyway,
the one thing that I was going to say is, so you're spending hundreds of billions of dollars to, artificially inflate this economy. Why wouldn't they spend $1 billion revolutionizing aged care?
100%.
Protecting them, looking after them. And when I say aged care,
100%.
I'm not only talking about nursing homes, which would obviously take the lion's share of that investment and the resources, but I mean old people at home. Australia, we've got a culture of forgetting about our old people a little bit. The whole world does, but I think particularly Australia, we've got this thing where, Are they being looked after? Okay, cool. I got to go to work, which comes back to the old thing about not having time and to visit people and be with your family.
And it gets back to our culture of living.
Indeed.
You know, I mean, you go to Europe, you go to South America, you go anywhere you want, and you will find in the old piazzas, as we call them,
Sure.
and the old people still come out and sit in the piazza and have a cup of tea and coffee up till 11 o'clock at night.
They're there.
They're not in their aged care homes.
No.
They're not sent into
No.
hospitals. They live till they die in their homes.
Yes.
Interestingly, with the aged care, I agree with you, White. The government's made a mess of aged care. We know that. But here's the thing, Raf. The figures came out yesterday, and they're official. 2019 and 2020, there were more people died in aged care homes in 2019 for the same period than in 2020 without COVID-19.
And no one cared.
No one cared, and more deaths. Now, how can you now say that COVID-19 has killed all these people in aged care? I don't believe it. And
I don't believe it either.
And we know the numbers are rubbish.
We know only 9%.
Correct.
Inflated already numbers.
Died of COVID-19, whereas the others died with COVID-19.
Correct.
But when you've got those numbers and they are less than last year...
Yeah, how's that a pandemic?
I hate to say this, but what's the problem?
Yeah.
If you look at the Italian figures, that Italy was made to look like the cesspit of COVID-19 in
Those
Europe.
numbers are all wrong too.
They were all wrong.
Sure.
And in fact, the numbers of some 30-odd thousand people that died in Italy were still less than the summation of deaths for the same period in 2019.
Yeah.
So something's...
Yeah.
And people don't see that.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't see... You could be the dumbest person in mathematics. You could have absolutely no idea. But if I paint those two pictures and give you 10 people died in 2019 and 9 people died in 2020, well, what the hell's going on here?
Exactly.
What the hell's going on?
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you anymore. And I think the issue that we have here is not only getting out of this situation right now, 2020, how we're going to get out of it right now and get out of it now. But
it's going to take years and years, right?
We need to make sure that this thing never happens again, because let me tell you something, my friend, the same people who are behind this have already got other things in mind for the future.
No doubt.
And you can hear Bill Gates openly boasting about the next one will definitely get people's attention.
Exactly.
His own words.
Exactly.
So he's already talking about the next one.
Exactly.
And that's where I think, forgiving for 1 second all of the cynicism and all of the they call it conspiracy theory. I think COVID-19 is a conspiracy theory. And now everything else is factual.
I was never a conspiracist, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe in conspiracy theories.
Sure.
But this one's got me.
Yeah.
Because I'm convinced of it now.
Yeah. Well, if we want to take a step back again, put aside the conspiracy or the malintent, let's say, surely people are starting to understand that we need to start learning to live with this so-called corona
no choice
19 virus. Because otherwise the question is, what is the aim of all these lockdowns? To eradicate this virus completely? To down to zero?
It won't work. That'll never happen. That'll never happen.
Of course not.
But you know what? I think what Australians are struggling to grasp here is that we could genuinely have a 2020 version of Adolf Hitler. And people don't understand that. Why are we as Australians thinking that it can only happen in Libya, or it can only happen in Iraq or Afghanistan, or or North Korea? Why do we think that fanatics are only born and operate in those countries?
Sure.
Right now, we've got one exactly like that in Victoria.
Sure.
And the same in Queensland.
Yep.
But in Andrews, we've got a fanatic. We've got an absolute power-hungry lunatic that is way out of line, out of control. And I'm just more disappointed in the apathy of Australians. You mentioned the word about laid back. We are always known as laid back.
She'll be right, mate.
And she'll be right. Well, we're not bloody right.
No.
As the saying goes now. And the fact that we can't get decent protests and there isn't civil unrest, but they were quick to jump on the BLM wagon.
Yes.
right, over nothing, had nothing to do with
which is
Australia.
another manufactured hijacked
100%,
movement,
and nothing to do with
completely.
Australia.
Nothing to do with
right?
Australia.
So we were quick to march on that and try and destroy monuments and history and all the rest of it. But we're prepared to be locked down in our home and curfewed and have pregnant women arrested and handcuffed,
Sure.
or an 80-year-old woman having a phone stolen out of hand and handcuffed by 5 police officers.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on with Australia?
Yeah. Look, one thing I will say about that, even though this is happening around the world, and I sometimes question why the rest of the world isn't up in arms, but Australia has had it very, very easy for a long time. No revolution, no civil war.
No doubt.
Next to no warfare. I mean, we've been involved in wars, but none of those have been on our own soil.
And we probably don't know how to react.
Yeah, that's
just like we didn't know how to react at the Lint Cafe hostage thing that happened.
That's right.
In Martin.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
didn't know how to react because we're not used to those types of
that's right.
terrorist attacks.
Yeah, indeed. And that's what I'm getting at.
It's not
I think
a fault. It's not to blame.
No.
It's the fact that we're not experienced.
Yeah, well-
and we're clearly not experienced now because we're getting trashed right now.
Yeah.
And stood on.
Yeah.
By the people we put in power.
Yeah.
We voted for these people, and sadly, we're listening to medical experts
Sure.
that we didn't even vote for.
No, and actually, not only listening, they're the ones that. So under the Biosecurity Act, essentially, those people take over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that commission that's running the country, which is all heavily compromised by big pharmaceutical.
Massive. We're also forgetting about the 1948 Act of
Nuremberg.
human rights.
Yeah, that's right,
You
from
bet.
the Nuremberg trial. Yeah, Nuremberg Code, I think
You
it's
bet.
called. Yeah,
Which guarantees the freedom of people's movement anywhere in this world, any country, any state.
that's right.
Right? And the freedom of your right to leave your home and not be locked down. I mean, I cannot believe
Yeah,
that we're allowing what is happening in this country now
yeah.
is being aligned to Northern Korea.
No doubt about it. It's just dressed up differently, and because it's over here, and we're not capable of that.
Yeah.
But I very much believe we are, and that's what's happening. Now, I will say another thing, Sid. The longer this goes on, the more people are becoming aware of what's happening.
Fortunately.
Yeah, and also then what's happening is once people start looking behind the curtain to look what's happening with COVID, we are starting to see other things that are lurking in the shadows, which leads to
Trail.
Yeah, it's a trail.
Yellow brick road.
Yeah, and it leads to all of these the pedophilia that is going on at an elite level. What's going on with how the banking cartels that are running the world. So it's almost like in trying to squash the human spirit, what's happening is, as it often does, is the opposite.
Exactly.
It's just taking, I
Exactly.
think, a little bit longer than
Exactly.
than we probably wish it would, Sid. But
No doubt.
yeah, it is happening. I can tell you for myself, I've been kind of on the fringes for some years, quite active on social media, and for a long time I was ridiculed and also singled out, and almost, let's say, on my own in many ways. Whereas nowadays, I am very, very happy to see that there's a lot of people questioning more and more,
Absolutely.
and even people that I definitely did not expect it from. But
Absolutely.
I'm sure we will get there, brother, and we've got to remain positive.
Absolutely.
And if not, I'm sure there's an island somewhere that we can probably purchase it, and we can all move there. And
sounds good to me. Nothing wrong with Malta, I can tell you right now.
Malta sounds good. I know you invited me to go down check it out, and I definitely want to do that.
Yeah.
But
I continue to promote it. I've been president for their Chamber of Commerce, Maltese Chamber of Commerce.
another one of your achievements, yes, my
15
friend.
years
Yep.
now, so
Yep.
I'm proud of that country.
Well, the Maltese have had a big impact on Australia, on Sydney, in Australia. Yeah, a lot of hard-working generations of Maltese people. Nowadays, I think they're a lot more blended into the Australian culture, and they're probably unrecognisable in many ways. But they've
That's
still
true.
got that that WOG, sort of hard-working spirit and labouring.
That's true. Well,
DNA.
Raph, the Maltese, the one thing about it's a good thing. You know what? The positive thing about the Maltese people when they immigrated here and still continue to come here in much smaller numbers now, is that we're recognised as one of the easiest assimilating nationalities in the world, in Australia.
Sure.
And the negative to that is that we're surrendering our culture and our
Indeed.
language.
Yep.
because the Maltese speak Maltese, obviously English,
Yep.
the Queen's English, and Italian. They're the three adopted languages in Malta.
Sure.
So obviously, when they come out, as even my parents did, they spoke English. In my house, we
I
spoke
did not know
English.
that.
And that is because of the British rule for some 200 years after
Sure.
Napoleon was kicked out of Malta.
Uh-huh.
So we assimilate very easily. So now, as I said, I've 15 years now, I've been president of the Australian Maltese Chamber of Commerce. We're now bringing in culture back into our chamber and
Yeah.
promoting language again, pushing the language schools and trying to keep what little we've got left
Yeah.
of being Maltese.
I man, kudos to you on that, because I don't think I've ever met one Maltese person that actually speaks Maltese. They probably did.
We do.
Yeah, they probably did, but it just never came up, and which is strange because I've crossed paths with lots of them.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, I think like anywhere in Mediterranean Europe, it would be an amazing place to visit, full of history, and I know we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But
I think Paul's got some history he wants to throw at us, doesn't he?
yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. Maybe we lighten up things a little bit after all the COVID 1984.
The Kung Flu, as some have called it.
Kung Flu, yeah, that's right. Our mate Trump, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we've got some pics, we've got some images that we like to share with the world, and we invite our guests to have a talk about them. And here we are. Here's your two beautiful girls. I recognize them actually in that photo. Tell us about what it is that you see.
Yeah. Well,
besides the mustache.
Yeah, that's right. As I said earlier today, I look like a 1970s porn star.
Yes, you do.
But and you can see the picture of my body in the background there, up on the wall.
Somehow that's reflecting off a mirror or something, is it?
I wish.
Sure.
But yeah, obviously my two little living treasures, I call them, Lauren behind us, who hasn't changed too much if you look at her, and little Chanel there, flashing her little baby teeth. Always had this huge grin and this huge smile, and her little toy that she's holding in her hand, as you know, with the old what were they? Geez, what were they called? Pokemons or something, or what?
Okay.
The little
little handheld video game, no?
Yeah.
So Digimons. Lauren's older.
Lauren's older. Lauren's 6 years older than Chanel.
Okay, cool.
So look, I'm going to take a guess on that and say that Chanel's probably no more than about 3-4 years old there. Just even going by her teeth, that's a big giveaway anyway. But so Lauren's about 10 there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. So that photo makes that's about 22 years old. That photo.
There you go, a bit of history right there with his
big smile.
His two treasures. The Borg sisters.
Yeah, and I think we're on a holiday there in the US. I think we're just outside Los Angeles. So.
Good times.
I can look at my T-shirt there. That's a Universal Studios film crew T-shirt that I had that I would have bought there. But,
good eye. Yeah. What else you got there, Paulie?
Oh God! Did I? Jesus, seriously, guys.
Wow, hold on.
We talked about 70s. Yeah. Anyway. Well, yeah. I mean, I had sort of half an attempt at making a mustache there.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you went out and there was a stiff wind, it probably would have blown off. But so here you go. Now I can tell you that picture was taken in 1978. Right?
78.
78. And I met my girlfriends, my school girlfriends, the girl I talked about for school, young Debbie. I'm at her parents' house there, and it was taken with a mate of mine's SLR camera, actually, one of my closest mates right through school, Chris Carroll. And but hey, look, you know what? I barely had whiskers there. Look at that.
Yeah, you got a pen in your pocket there. I see. That's the IT engineering.
That's the sign the next order and count the money. But
I feel like you're going to solve some case or something, like a private eye.
I'm going to what? Sorry, Paulie?
Solve a case or something like.
Detective
investigator.
Check the hair out. I mean,
that's a full crown of hair there, brother.
Mate, that's a full crown of hair, and the body shirt without a body, and the high bell bottom pants. A bit of John Travolta there.
Yeah, those days. Yeah, actually Travolta. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the watch is a digital watch, one of the first digital watches when they first came out. I've still got that digital watch.
Wow. You must have some memorabilia, see?
Yeah, a little bit. In a little glass cabinet. So God damn it. Yeah, you too can have a body like that if you don't look after it. So
He's a comedian too, ladies and gentlemen. Next one there, Paulie, give us a look. Oh,
whoa.
here he is. This is...
Fast forward 5 years.
Put a
And
zero
what
on
marriage does to you.
that. Looking sharp there, Sid. Wow.
Well, yeah, that was just taken 2 years ago, actually.
Uh-huh.
And you know, I talked to you about brothers, you know, Raf, yourself,
Yes.
and Mike in the US, and
Yeah.
one of my closest is Adam. And Adam, you know, you probably met Adam, Raf, because Adam was the guy that did the fit out and built Margaritaville.
I don't think I meant it. No, I don't think so, brother. No.
So Adam had a business there, and he did the fit out for me, and we became, you know, what will be lifelong friends, and his absolutely beautiful wife, Singy. And so I'm there in my full Knights of Malta or Knights of St John regalia.
Which we're going to talk about soon, yes.
Yeah, and right there I'm in Lake Como.
Wow, okay.
So that's in Lake Como, and 2 years ago, and we're at a place called Villa d'Est, which is just magnificent.
Sure.
And it's where what's his name got married over there with his wife,
Clooney?
George Clooney.
Sure.
He was actually there that day. I didn't get to see him, but he was, he was in a dining room.
Lake Como's in Italy, right?
Absolutely.
Sure. Just for people at home.
Just south of Milan, and so about 40 minutes drive, and so I my job that day was the wedding celebrant. So I married Adam and Singy that day in front of all their family and their friends. Which is
another part of you being who you are as far as the Knights of Malta, right? So that gives you the right then to...
Certainly in Europe it does.
In Europe,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
it does. So I was
you're
able
a celebrant.
to do that. Yeah, I was able to do that.
Interesting.
And yeah, so yeah.
Good times
so
again, no?
At least I had a much more solid mustache there than I did in the previous photo.
Yes, I'm sure. It took you a while to get there.
And I've still got a little bit of hair left on my head, so
you got a full head of hair there, brother.
Life hasn't
You've
been
been
that
lucky.
bad to me.
But looking very sharp. We're going to talk about some of these awesome bits and pieces that we have here from the Knights of Malta, but let's look at the next photo. I know we've got a couple of cool ones here. Cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously there you can see the whole dynamic team.
He's cool.
Yeah. So for all of you that don't know about that mysterious voice that you can hear in the background, that's that big man right in the middle there next to Sid behind the balloons. That's Paulie B. On the far left is our brother DKMC, which we've had on the show. Of course, Sid. In the back, we've got our brother Pee-wee, who was head of security at the time. One of the brothers. We still keep in touch.
Still do. I do as well.
Yeah, big shout out to him. We chatted here and there on Facebook.
Great guy.
I think he's in love with his woman now more than ever. Congratulations.
Yeah.
The beautiful Ebony right there. Ebony, she was shining in this photo. Hello, Ebony.
She was.
How you doing? I'm still very much in touch with Ebony. Amazing singer. Ebony Rose Music, if you guys want to look her up on socials. Myself, of course, with the bald head.
Looking sensational as always.
Doing my best with the flowers.
And that's Sarge, isn't it, on the right?
Yeah, Sarge, He was one of the main guards for us, and he's still
still friends with him.
Still very active and still
top
around.
Top guy.
And this, of course, is our time at Margaritaville, which we mentioned before in Darling Harbour, which was the place to be for many years for many different things, for food and that's the old Stein, was it?
South Stein Ferry, which is gone now.
Yeah, it's gone. It's been gone for a little while.
Well, it's gone for good.
Yeah.
So they've, you would have seen they've built a whole promenade there now.
Yeah. So do we know where he's gone or no?
Well, certainly not. I don't believe it's as a restaurant anymore.
No. Yeah.
And they've moved the rest. I think they've moved the actual ferry round to not Rose Bay, but Roseville Marina.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'm not sure what they. I mean, that'll become a heritage historical.
I'm sure because it was quite old already.
It was.
When it was
South
there.
Stein was.
Yeah.
Shame it was moved, but it probably opened up that whole area.
Yeah,
now.
it was a little bit cluttered, kind of. Yeah. But it was probably needed.
Yeah, funny story. When we closed, sorry, Paulie, when we closed Margaritaville down, he was trying to promote the South Stein as sort of the
alternative.
Margaritas. And
I remember seeing the balloons and stuff. He was trying to pick up a bit of the trade there. Yeah,
he tried.
Yeah. Paulie, what were you going to say, brother?
It looks like it's stored at Berries Bay.
Well, that'd be right. Yeah. There you go.
What else you got there, Paulie, to show us?
Oh, this is
holding on with grim death here. Oh my God, Paulie, seriously, mate, are you?
This is a throwback with a capital T. This one.
Whew, God damn.
Let's try and find Sid first.
Is it this one here?
You got
That's
a tip
the
off,
one.
buddy.
Yeah, he got tipped off, I think.
You got tipped
Not
off
fair.
there with a good bowl haircut that my father used to do, which became trendy later.
Yep.
So 1967, as you can see there, Sadleir Primary School, Green Valley, 2A3, 1967, long way. And, I could probably still name most of those. And
You got a pretty sharp memory there, Sid.
yeah, and some of them are still my, extremely close friends today.
That's a
Interestingly enough,
testament,
after all those years,
Yeah.
in the middle, Keith Piper and Gary Bateman and, all these guys.
I don't see a lot of wogs by the look of it.
Well, no. I mean, you've got one there, Yolandi, the second row, the girls from the right, the
Sure.
Indian-looking girl.
Sure.
So, well, not
Am I
looking,
allowed to
she
say
was
wogs,
Indian.
Paulie? Can you?
Yeah,
am I allowed to say wogs? I don't
Talk
know.
about this one.
It's what I, yeah. So, you know what?
Paulie keeps me politically, but he tries to keep me politically correct. Yeah.
Well, you'll see that's a very Anglo-Saxon community there.
It is.
I mean, we've got one here. Now, there's a gentleman there, a young kid by the name of Stephen Bowden. Now, the reason I'm going to mention him is only this morning I saw a posting that just 2 days ago was the anniversary of 52 or 53 years, I forgot what it was, of his young brother that was killed when he jumped out of his bedroom window in Green Valley to go to the Miller shops to buy his dad a Father's Day card.
Wow.
And the night before Father's Day, and he jumped out of his bedroom and he ran across the street and got hit by a bus, I think, at that stage, and killed him. He was only, Steve was his older brother.
Yeah.
Steve Bowden. I forgot what the nationality was at that stage. But just a really nice kid, Steve Bowden. And so is his little, so is his little brother. But his little brother was killed. It was sad for us in those days. It's unbelievable.
I'm sure it was a big shock.
Yeah. There were a few tragic cases in those days. There was another one in our street. I think his sister actually is in that photo. But
Different times.
he was.
There wasn't much cotton wool around back then. There's a
there-
lot of cotton wool around now.
Man, there was a small block of flats, just 10 houses up from my house. I remember being asleep, and I thought there was an earthquake, and the whole house shook, and there was an explosion. And that block of flats, I remember running out in the street in my pajamas and looking up and seeing flames, and went running up to these 10 houses, and the whole top unit of this block of 4 was gone. And
Gas leak or something.
No. Terry's brother Trevor had he had his grandfather in the house with him, and he went around the house and sealed all the windows and doors with tape, taped everything up, and switched the gas stove on and lit it, and committed suicide, killed both him and his grandfather, blew the entire block, top floor of that flat out of the apartment.
Wow.
So some really tough stories from those days.
Incredible.
Tough stories. But yeah, thanks, Paulie, for that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
I didn't have a mustache there, though, in 1967, which is unusual.
You probably shaved that morning.
Everyone says I was born with it.
There's proof he wasn't.
Next, my friend.
Next one, Paulie.
Oh, wow.
I still call you friend.
He's calling me.
man.
Yeah, he's looking sharp, brother.
Now, I was going to tell you something.
Sure.
There's
Go
a
ahead.
show on Netflix called The Umbrella Academy.
Chanel watches that.
Yep.
Sure.
I actually messaged her now, that photo. And you look like one of the characters called Number 5.
Number 5. I
There
thought
you
that
go.
was a robot. I said that before.
That was-
Number 5 is alive.
Yeah, that was a good movie too.
So,
Number 5.
anyone want to guess how old I was there?
3.
No.
Thanks, mate.
No. 6.
I'm actually 10. Yeah.
10.
I'm actually 10 years old, and that was the day of my Holy Communion.
Oh, okay.
In
Cool.
school uniform. That's sadly a primary school uniform.
Sure.
Hey, polished shoes, the nice Bermuda socks,
Yeah.
good old shorts and shirt.
Looking
and
sharp,
tie.
my friend. Very sharp.
Yeah.
Yep.
All, the hair all thrown over to the right-hand side. I was
Yeah.
a lot fairer then. My hair was almost blonde in those days.
Yeah.
Good old
Looking
Charter
good,
Street,
Sid.
Green Valley. But yeah,
Good
well,
on you, brother.
God damn, it's a long time ago.
What else we got there, Paulie?
Oh, man, does it get any
What
better?
are the P plates on there?
So yeah, I won't say what P stood for then, but so there you go. So that's year 12.
Are we allowed to say pussy?
Chaser.
That,
Wow.
It's the C
I don't know.
Cat,
That's what I thought,
cat.
but doesn't necessarily mean that's what it
No,
meant. but-
so there was my father's beloved Fiat 500 Bambino that I just restored again.
Yeah.
And given the fact that that's P-plate, so I was, I got my license when I was 17. So probably, I'm not 18 there. I'm less than 18 in year 12. But hey, look at the long hair. I had hair down way past my neck at the back there.
That's the era.
And the bell-bottom school, and I'm in school uniform there. That's school uniform. So I had the bell-bottom pants, the desert boots. The shirt, I have to say, was non-school. The school uniform shirt was a cotton shirt.
Yeah.
In those days, the first body shirts came out. They were called Fabiani, an Italian name.
Sure.
And if you could wear a Fabiani body shirt, you'd reach that point, right? But,
you were cool.
But it was a body shirt without the body, right? I mean, I was skinny as a damn rake there. I was all of about 60, 62 kilos compared to where I am today.
70.
Funny photo, and the rest. I'm
trying to help you out.
I'm hitting 86, 87.
Nah, you're doing good, Sid.
But yeah, classic photo.
Good photo, man. Thank you, Paulie. What else we got there, brother? Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Paulie, is this Nati Natasha or?
What is?
What
did I message you the other day?
Dominican reggaeton star Nati Natasha.
Paulie thought it was, and she's a dead ringer, but
it's not her, right?
It's not, and one absolute beautiful girl, and her and her partner Paul are two of the loveliest people. I tell you what, she's got a great job. One of the USA's leading makeup artists.
Do you remember her name? For
a lot of, I'm pretty sure it's Megan. So
shout out to Megan.
Yeah,
Paulie's single. If you want to,
no.
If what? No.
She's going out with someone called Paul.
Yeah, going out with someone called Paul. There you go.
Wow.
And he's a legend.
Another Paul.
Another legend.
Paul. Okay,
so that 2 years ago, we were at the Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR Championships in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is the hometown of where NASCAR comes from.
Trump country.
You betcha. So we're exactly where he was just yesterday. So we're at the and we're in the Hooters. Where Hooters was racing that day, we were guests in the Hooters VIP box. So it was a great day. And you know what? If you're going to see a NASCAR race, it's got to be Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, cool. I'll keep that in mind.
The home of NASCAR.
And another bit of good times.
Speaking of NASCAR champions,
here he is, Peter Brock.
Yeah, eat your heart out. I've always done, I've always loved race cars and driven race cars. And
you're a car enthusiast, aren't you?
Yeah, and competed and done all sorts of things. And both girls, the funny thing about Lauren and Chanel is I didn't have a son, but I still got two sons as well as daughters. Because I damn well brought them up as boys.
Yeah, they can wear both hats.
They love everything to do with boys. They race sprint karts, go-karts, and still do, or still have. And I got to a stage where I couldn't do anything unless I had them with me. If it was anything to do with motorsport or skiing or water skiing or boating or anything or any other male type sport, the girls were there. And let me say, as fiercely as competitive as any male, and would beat most of the partners they've ever had, which were to great disappointment of the male ego.
Sure.
Because they're so competitive, both of them. Both great athletes.
Good quality. Especially as a woman to have that strong character and that.
Great quality in both of them. But we were there at a V8. We were doing hot laps at Eastern Creek Motorway.
I need to organise something, Sid. I haven't done much in motorsport or racing and stuff, but I wouldn't mind maybe a track day or something.
But you're going to get involved with us.
I think
with
the
Bull Rush with that great Lexus
Thank you
of yours,
for the invite.
man.
I will do, bro.
That's a living supercar, and I'm going to take you where you're going to be able to put it to its test.
Beautiful, man. Very looking forward to that.
Soon.
Next photo. Ooh, here we go. One of the perks of of the whole Hooters thing.
Hugh Hefner, eat your heart out.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's one of our Hooters bikini pageants.
Yep.
2016. And
we were there that night.
Yeah, you were, and every one of those girls, were working for me. And
Hooters.
Yeah, and Lauren is there, of course.
Loza.
Yeah, in looking like a Cocoa Pop there in a chocolate brown tan. Lauren had just come
Monica
off.
as well.
And Monica, God bless her. I mean, she only just retired basically from working with us because she's now fortunately, she's on an opportunity of having scholarship, sponsorship
Yeah.
for her visa, and she's doing what she does great, marketing and digital work.
That's right.
And she came back and did something with that Frenchie. We did a music video clip, a rap clip.
Ah, yeah, you were telling me about it. Yeah,
and Monica was there.
Yeah, okay.
Lauren had just come off doing competing in the Miss. I think I forgot what it was now, but a bodybuilding.
Yeah, she went pretty hard on that. I remember seeing the
bodybuilding
photos.
competition. Never seen so much tuna being eaten in my life as what Lauren ate. But yeah,
you need to go to Paulie's house and see my cousin Ruben. Open up his
Ruben,
cupboard.
well, I know Ruben, right?
Ruben's got
a whole shelf just of tuna.
You'd think he's a prepper. The amount of tuna that he's got in there.
I love tuna, but my God, it's insane. But anyway,
I had 7 years of it.
Classic photo. Yeah, well, speaking of brothers,
there's the champ.
Now there is a living legend, to be honest with you.
Jeff Fennick on the left.
Jeff Fennick is truly
recognised,
a living legend. I mean, triple world crown, boxing champion, without any shadow of a doubt, Australia's most successful boxer in history, and that guy's a World Hall of Famer in boxing. He's got records today, Raf, that have still not been knocked out in world boxing and ring. Coached Mike Tyson. No one doesn't know Jeff Fennick around the world. I'm proud, to be, not just associated, but to be an extremely close friend with him. I love him dearly. And
maybe we should try getting him on the show, Paulie. What say you?
Yeah,
we'll speak to Sid and we'll try and make it happen. It'll be good to get Fennick on here, man. I'm pretty sure we have lots of stories. Man.
Absolutely, and Maltese.
And Maltese, of course. There you go. Right. For that extra little bit of pride in the brother and his achievements, he's Maltese to top it off.
And Jeff is that belt I'm holding there. Was the recent I think WBF. I can't remember now which one it was, but it was the junior world championship belt that Brock Jarvis won. Brock Jarvis is without doubt more than an up and coming potential world champion. Will be a world champion. Brock is just the most humblest, nicest young man you could ever meet. His father is the same, and his brother, and the whole family. But hey, he's where he is because of Jeff.
He's trained by Jeff.
Absolutely. Jeff is one of the best coaches you could ever hope to have as a trainer. And Brock is, and we sponsor him. There's Hooters down the side of his shorts there, but I'd love to be able to help them a lot more. But it's tough times at the moment. But
it is indeed.
Yeah, but and Jeff, Jeff went through some tough times recently, as you know, with his heart, and had, he nearly lost his life in Thailand. So, but yeah, great guy.
And we're going to discuss the ghost of distillery.
Okay.
All right, no worries. Well, there's not many segments that Paulie should really sort of take over and run himself. But if there's anything to do with paranormal activity or scary movies or just movies in general, but definitely anything to do with a ghost. Yeah, gaming. But I don't want to encourage bad habits like gaming, brother. But anyway, ghosts. What's the story? Go ahead, please, Paulie.
So I was stalking your Facebook.
Yep.
And I came across this photo which had a bit of a ghost story
behind it.
I want to hear more about it. So let me just.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you. You know what? If you're going to own and operate a restaurant that's 150 years old in Australia...
It's the old Penfolds site, you were saying.
It is, and it actually dates back to the old Minchin family, which is the famous Minchinberry champagne. It was very famous in the 70s and 80s.
Sure.
And interestingly, that Minchinberry estate, which is now a housing estate, Minchinberry Winery, was the first winery in Australia.
Oh, wow.
They were the first vineyards in Western Sydney, in Australia.
And the suburb's called Minchinbury, right?
And it's called Minchinbury. And even the streets, our restaurant is on Barossa Drive. There's Saturn Avenue and Cab Sav.
So it's all wine related, yeah.
So then what happened was the Minchin family sold out and the Penfolds family bought the Minchinberry wineries. And then in the early 80s, there was one of three fires that had burnt down that place. And our restaurant and the shed next door were the only two surviving buildings left in the whole winery. Everything else was destroyed. And then it became a restaurant. So it's a heritage listed site. But there's a lot of ghost stories that come with it. And since COVID and the last 6 months that I've been more personally involved in the restaurant to try and see what we're going to do to hold on to a fine dining restaurant in a tough economic market now, Chanel and I have experienced a lot of crazy paranormal experiences that I was not a believer and now cannot explain. A lot of the things that I could talk about. And Lauren, who was running it beforehand, had also experienced some things that have put the fear of God into her about, things that we cannot explain, things that we've seen and experienced. Cannot explain it. But that photograph there, as unclear as it is, given the fact that it's taken at about 11:30 p.m. and outside the restaurant, was, and one small story is about 10 to 9 every night, 8:50 p.m. All our guests that are dining in the restaurant have experienced one haunting thing that happens, and where there's one particular light in the whole restaurant. It's all connected on one circuit. They've all been replaced. We've changed it now. That starts flickering at 8:50 p.m. exactly at 8:50 p.m. every single night, seven nights, 365 days a year.
Wow.
And it cannot be explained. We've had Sparkies look at it. We've done everything, and it just happens. But that particular night, Dennis was leaving the restaurant. He'd closed up and shut it down. He'd heard some noises downstairs. Didn't want to go down to the cellar, and just switched the lights off. And he had, when you lock up our restaurant, you've got to switch the lights off at the back, and then walk through this dark restaurant till you get to the front, and then close the front door. Then you go to the alfresco area and close it. After he'd closed it all, he heard a noise, and then he's walked down the side of our car park area and looked inside to see the full image
silhouette
of a
person.
Of a person inside the restaurant. No one in there, and he watched it and saw it moving, and then took the picture as quick as he could, and then ran for his life.
Sure. So 8:50 p.m. is when we need to be there, Paulie, with
That's
all
right.
of your Geiger counters.
So here's the plan. We go 7:30. We get our food and eat.
That's
Sure.
exactly right.
Right, and then we sit back and relax.
Yeah.
And wait for the.
And I give you some of that haunting wine, and and you see, but that was, to me, that's without any doubt, that's living proof. I mean, but we've got many other stories.
Speaking of wine, we love presents and gifts here at the expansion at the podcast. We've been fortunate to get a couple already from our brother Nick, and also from MC Abe, who's come through to visit us. Hasn't been on the show yet, but will be soon. But I'm holding in my hand. This is a 2011 Shiraz Wagner.
Yep.
Wagner. Did I say that right?
Correct.
This is a gift that Sid has brought for us today. And I can see, yes, definitely. Thank you, Vince. Thank you.
That's good, Paul.
And so I can see, obviously, the Maltese Knights of Malta, symbols on here. The emblem. Please explain to us, brother, what it is that I'm holding, and I'm very much looking forward to drinking it. But what is it that I'm holding here, brother? What's the?
So that's a very limited edition wine that's been produced from down at the Southern Highlands.
Sure.
In fact. So it's a cold climate wine.
Sure.
It's a Southern Highlands wine.
Yep.
And the particular winery where I had this bottled for us.
Sure.
This particular wine you've got in that bottle now, it was taken from his private bin, as they
Sure.
call it. So
Yep.
that's the
best of the
that's
best.
the best. When you got the drop, that's the best drop. And
Uh-huh.
and the winery, the owner of the winery has it as his private bin, and it's his
Sure.
private cask. And he agreed at that stage to bottle this for me in a very limited number of cases.
Sure.
And is literally classified as his best drop. But anyone who's ever drunk this wine, I can assure you, Rafa, has absolutely loved it.
God bless you, brother.
As an Australian wine, it's fun. And that wine, by the way, what we did with this particular drop is we auctioned it off at a charity fundraiser we have through the Knights of Malta, where the funds that we got for the sale of those wines
Sure.
were donated to the Garvin Institute
Okay. Sure.
over in Darlinghurst, which
Yeah.
is run and operated, as you know, as part of St Vincent's.
Yeah. Garvin Institute. Yeah, I've heard it over the years
Amazing
mentioned many
institute,
times. Yeah.
amazing
What exactly is it that they do? What the field?
In all fields, Raf, what they do is they've got laboratories there, and they do a lot of testing and testing even of people, obviously, and,
Sure.
and against
Cancer and stuff, no?
absolutely cancer research, allergies,
Sure.
all sorts of other
Sure.
diseases, and where they try and develop vaccines and other things for it.
Brother, thank you very much for this. It will go on a very special occasion.
Right.
I will try and keep it away from some of the hyenas that I have in my house that like raiding my alcohol cabinet.
And have long straws.
Cousins. I do have a few of those, but no. On the real, thank you so much for this. We're going to put it over here.
Pleasure.
And I think it's a great segue into what it is, the Knights of Malta, because one of the things that's really, really interesting to me about your incredible life, a well-lived life, and no doubt there are many more stories still to be written, but a big one is the Knights of Malta. Now, I'll tell you what I know, because I mentioned, I have had some interest in history over the years, and intertwined with this history that I've read about Freemasons, about Knights Templar. I remember reading about the Knights of Malta, and sitting in front of me today is an authority on the Knights of Malta. So I would love for you to tell us a bit more about the organization, its origins, where it comes from, why was it founded, who was it founded by, and some of its maybe more important, let's say, historical moments and even achievements.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself an authority on it, but at least I can tell you some of the history of it. But it's a very honourable order to be part of.
Sure.
Rafa. It's and in its simplest form today is one of the oldest living orders.
Sure.
On the planet.
How old is it?
Well, to be exact, around 1048 is when it first started.
Wow.
And
so nearly 1,000 years.
Absolutely, and it began as a as a hospital, so to speak.
Sure.
By as a defender, of course, of the faith as well and the people.
Sure.
By the Blessed Fra Gerard, and so he was the founder. And in fact, on the 5th of September, was in fact his anniversary of the passing of him, which was 900 years ago. So the Knights of Malta, and which became the Knights of St. John of
Sure.
Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. So when I said when it started in the 10th century, it started in Jerusalem.
Sure.
And it was pretty much there till the 15th century, when the Knights had to leave Jerusalem, when they surrendered and lost their battles at that point in time. To what was the Muslim
Sure.
push in those days, through
Persian
the Persians.
Empire. Yep.
Yeah, and they were given Malta by King Charles V, and as a papal order as well. That they were given Malta as the island of defence, and an island for them to be able to to flee to, basically.
Establish a base.
Absolutely.
Sure. After 500 years.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. So 1530, and by 1564, a very, very, very famous point in history called the Great Siege of Malta.
Sure.
Which was then controlled and run by Jean de la Valette, which is Valletta, which is now the capital city, the name of the capital city of Malta.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Jean de la Valette, the Knights were made up of Spanish,
Of course.
Italian,
Yeah,
German.
different European people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
French.
They weren't Maltese.
Sure.
They went to Malta.
Sure.
And that's where the beginning of Malta's fortification began, in that 15th century. And if you go to Malta now, you'll see that the cities are basically fortresses. They're bastions.
Sure. Mm.
And the fortification of Valletta was critical. And they're all connected via catacombs underneath, where they
tunnels.
So where you would retreat from one and go to the next city.
Sure.
Some of the cities like Mdina and are actually surrounded by a moat. So the whole island was fortified, and as I said, in the 10th century and then later on in the early 15th century, there was a 6-month battle against the Persians, and they lost, and they went to Malta. King Charles V gave Malta to the Knights, and then they fortified and built Malta to what it is today. I mean, Malta still today is a living fortress. It's amazing.
Yeah. Lots of history, I'm sure.
Amazing
Beautiful island
history.
to see, yeah.
And it's those fortifications that protected the Maltese during World War II.
Wow.
During World War II, Malta was the heaviest bombed country on the planet. But what saved the Maltese was the underground bastions and catacombs where they were able to go. So by just sheer history of building it, was able to sustain and protect the Maltese, and so that their loss of life was nothing compared to what it should have been. For the amount of bombing that was happening. So the Knights, 1564 was the Great Siege of Malta. That went on for 3 months, where the Knights of Malta fought Suleiman the Magnificent. So Suleiman had already taken much of Europe at that stage. And the threat was obviously and directly to the Christian faith and to the Catholic faith, and more importantly to the Vatican, where it could have been overthrown. So 3 months of hell, a massive battle, and Suleiman failed. He retreated, much to everyone's obviously
surprise.
Great surprise, because he'd already conquered a greater part of Europe. And became a famous point in history, in the writing of history.
Sure.
But the Knights were, and the Knights, obviously, even from that 10th century, wore what is now known as the Maltese Cross, the 8 points of the Maltese Cross.
This one that we can see here?
Yeah, on the Cape. And that was worn on their mantle or their cape, which was a sign of the support, as they did for hospital, for the sick and the poor and the needy, which is what we stand for today. Today we don't fight with swords anymore; we fight with pens. It's and we do a lot of work, Raf, for charities.
Sure. So most of these orders were established to protect the pilgrims traveling to and from Jerusalem, whilst at Jerusalem.
Correct.
And when you say hospital, I mean, obviously we think of hospital nowadays as, a hospital. Back in those days, it was more a place where the injured would rest from travel and so on. I mean, hospitals were very rudimentary, right? It wasn't...
you can't compare it today, but the whole concept of hospitals, came from that whole
That's
Knights
like
of
the
Malta
beginnings,
hospitals. So they were in fact hospitals where, if you go to what's called the Sacra Infermia in Valletta in Malta, that is in fact a hospital, and you will see where they used to have all the beds, the wards. There are wards there.
Sure.
Right, and we're talking the 15th century.
Yeah.
There were wards and there were nurses, and in fact, where the beds used to be, the iron crosses are still in the walls, in the stone walls. And so the hospital is, it was looking after the sick and the poor, but more importantly, a place where injured soldiers were taken to be, obviously medically treated as best they could. Yep. So yes, there was medicines as rudimentary as they were, and ways of stitching up and cutting legs, cutting limbs off, and doing whatever they needed to do.
So we would assume that you would have had the militant type knights, with the armor and all of that, and the horses and everything, and then there might have also been monks and people, nurses and stuff in the organization. So it was only just the knights; it was also a big organization.
Absolutely. Huge organisation,
I'm sure,
and why do you think today the Maltese Cross is the symbol on ambulances? Yeah, and why was it called St John's Ambulance?
St John's Ambulance, that was one thing I was thinking as you spoke.
It's all spin-offs.
Yeah, of course.
And interestingly, after the victory of Malta against Suleiman and against the Persian Empire, it wasn't long after that in fact the Knights had grown so wealthy and so strong that they in themselves became a threat to the Vatican again, to the Pope. And
which has similar parallels to the Knights Templar, which a similar thing happened.
So the Knights Templar and the Freemasons, in fact, came well after the Knights of St John, the Knights of Malta. They were spin-offs. And there's a paragraph in the Freemasons book that actually discusses the Knights of St John, the Knights of Malta. So they were literally spin-offs, and as a result of the Knights fleeing Malta, because at that stage, if you look back in history, there's a lot of stories around where in fact, there was a strong signal sent out from the then Pope at that stage to
Crush.
Absolutely, crush the threat. So they fled. And then the next Grand Master of the Order, in fact, became the Tsar of Russia. Was the Tsar of Russia, and he became the next Grand Master of the Order. Because Knights fled to Russia, they fled to Germany. You had the Teutonic Knights. They fled to. They fled to
Teutonic Knights. That's another one I'd read about.
And I'm a Teutonic Knight as well. So they fled to England, and then next thing the Freemasons began. But the Knights Templar became after, and it's written in history, the Knights Templar were completely eradicated. I mean, they were destroyed.
Yeah, apparently some escaped to here or there. There's talk that they ended up in Scotland, hence why you have the Rosslyn Chapel and other bits and pieces. But I know that the papacy, like many other kings and emperors, and whenever there's a threat from an organisation becoming too powerful that they can't control, they try to eradicate it.
Well, it's history. It's how it's always worked. The order today is still a Christian order. It's still, and it's an ecumenical order, so it's all Christian faiths.
Sure.
But the emphasis on Christian.
Of course.
And it's worldwide. We have knights and we have dames, and
sure.
We still have what they call investitures, where we invest people, and those who want to become a knight or a dame are sponsored by one or two knights, have to recommend.
Sure.
We then look at what philanthropic work that you've done, or what you've given back to communities, or what you voluntarily do for sick and poor and needy people, which is key to what we represent and stand for.
Charity is a big focus.
Massive. And then if you're sponsored, you go through a 2-year, I would call it an apprenticeship.
Sure.
You learn the history of the order and what's involved and what was expected of you, and then we carry out the investiture, usually around between 8 to 10 people are knighted every 2 years, and they become knights or dames or sisters or brothers of the order.
Sure.
Or hospitallers who are volunteers and do work in charities.
Amazing.
The ceremony is still identical to the same ceremony that was conducted 900 years ago. We still have the blessing. We still have the tying of the ropes of the horses, and the spurs of the horse that you swear allegiance to, of what the knights used to be brandished and go out to fight battle.
Sure.
So we still hold that in a church, at the altar with a chaplain and myself, and or whoever the heads of the priories around the world. I've been fortunate to go to Malta, and I've helped in knighting people there, and in Italy as well, and France, and
haven't knighted anyone in Australia? No.
I have, absolutely.
Okay, in Australia.
Yeah. We have about 24 knights and dames of the order here in Australia.
Sure. Worldwide, how many members?
We're sitting probably around about 380, 400 at the moment.
Cool. So very exclusive.
Yeah,
sure.
It is, and it should be.
Yeah.
Not because it should be exclusive, but
it's
You can't.
It's not for anyone. You got to be an achiever. You have to. You have to tick the boxes.
You've got to tick the boxes. I mean, to stand up for what we have. There are several. I mean, there are other orders that call themselves the Order of Malta or the Knights of Malta, or so there are other splinters around the world that have set up their own order.
Sure.
So we're the Knights Hospitallers, and we originate in Malta. The seat sits in Malta.
Yeah.
Where it's sat in different other countries over history, but it's a very honourable order to be involved with, and it's nice to give back to the community.
I can see that.
To help.
And why don't we then jump on our horses and ride against these fake Knights of Malta that are springing up around the place? Shouldn't that be the natural order of things?
It's a difficult one. It'd be nice to do it, but I take this approach that if they're proud to have their little order and they do what they do, and they're still giving back to community and charity and sick and poor, you know what you say, Rafa? You say,
good on you.
Let it be, because they're doing good, not harm.
Yeah, indeed.
And anyone that's doing good, it's easy to tear them down, and it's like, well, if we tear down everyone that's giving, then we'll have nothing.
Of course, I get you.
But look, it's a wonderful thing, and let me tell you, the pride that you have when you're being knighted, if you're becoming a knight that day, and the fact that you carry those brevet initials after your name, the OSJ, meaning the Order of St. John, is something you carry for the rest of your life.
Sure.
And it's more a reward than an entitlement.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah,
That's
it's
the
a
important thing.
recognition.
People
yeah.
tend to think it's an entitlement. It's not. It's
It's not like
it's an award,
like a
reward.
royal thing or yeah.
No, and if you're fortunate enough to visit the two cathedrals in Malta where the Knights, the original
We will be
Knights
there
are-
one day soon,
yeah,
brother.
they're buried in the floor there. You can see their tombs
Ah, okay.
in the whole floor
Yeah.
of the church.
So this is the sword with which you would knight people,
That's right. That's what we call the brandishing sword.
brandishing sword.
So that's usually strapped to my side,
Sure.
in a holster, so to speak. Hence
Yep.
the
Yeah, the hooks.
the hooks.
Yeah.
And at that moment, after we've gone through the entire ceremony, which takes about an hour, the last thing is obviously investing you and brandishing you, where you take you're on your knees and you swear to the oath of the order and,
Sure.
and what you represent and that you will support the order and you will support its the Grand Master and the following of. You know, we have a Supreme Council worldwide. Every Grand Prior of each continent represents members of the Supreme World Council.
Sure. And how many people would sit on that council?
7
Okay, so you got seven
members of the Supreme Council.
municipalities
around
the world.
and our Grand Master, God bless him, passed away some few years back, and the seat of the order is still vacant, being temporarily held at this stage by myself as the Lieutenant Grand Master.
So, Lieutenant Grand Master, Global Grand Master. So that would make you acting
Grand Master.
Grand Master
At this stage.
At this
Until
stage,
the
yep.
Supreme Council forms. We were supposed to form in March of this year
Yep.
in Malta, and
Sure.
that just became impossible.
Of course, for obvious reasons. Yeah.
And but we are still to meet, and we have to have an election of who will be the next Grand Master.
Talk to us about this.
Tools of trade.
This would be the main cross to be worn, yeah, around
That's
the neck.
right.
Yeah.
So the knights and dames actually wear one that's about half the size of that.
Ah, okay, cool.
So
Yeah.
obviously, if you
Yes,
hold a higher
hierarchy.
rank,
Yeah, of course,
as
yeah.
always,
Yeah.
so that's the cross that I wear, and you would have seen on that photograph.
I saw it on the photo.
in
exactly.
Lake Como.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
so that and we wear a pin on our lapel, which is on my jacket.
Sure.
The pin on my lapel is internationally recognised by
Yep.
by most people in politics, in medicine,
Yeah.
in any position, and anyone that knows their history. The minute they see that lapel on your pin, they know that you're a Knight of Malta. So it's a door opener,
Sure.
but it's also a recognition of what you've done and what you've achieved. But
Sure.
it's a world symbol.
It is.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And obviously, on my jacket is actually the emblem as well, right? Which is the
Yes.
the famous eagle.
That's a very cool jacket there, my friend.
very famous
Yeah.
eagle. But yeah, thanks.
So, I mean, you touched on the ceremonies and stuff. So, essentially the Freemasons and the Freemasons, because the Templars are not around anymore, even though most people will tell you that they're probably sort of, whatever.
Yeah.
They dispersed and then perhaps were the founding blocks of what became the Masons. You're saying that they share a lot of the rights. And
I mean, the Freemasons is a secret society.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're an open society.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
And I've got some of my closest friends and who are also Knights of Malta are Freemasons.
Sure.
But there is actually a chapter dedicated to the Knights of Malta within the Freemasons.
Sure.
And but they have their own beliefs and standards and what
Sure.
they do, and they're a fantastic organisation.
Sure.
And a fantastic order, a lot of pride, a lot of pride in their order.
But they don't do knighting, right? They're not no.
Well, I wouldn't call it knighting, but I
Yeah.
don't know enough about it to know
Sure.
exactly. But there's a swearing-in ceremony.
Yeah,
to become a
yeah.
Freemason that is
But they don't
very
do the
honourable
sword.
and. Look, I'm not sure. I believe they may, Rafa. But,
Okay, cool.
But
So I've seen
I
the
don't want
sword.
to call it.
Yeah. I've seen the sword. Yeah.
But they have a true ceremony that has a lot of history behind that as well.
Have you been approached to become a Mason?
I had a couple of times.
Sure.
And
Because you fit the mold.
and that may happen sometime in the future.
Sure.
I don't know, but
You never know.
But being a representative in my position of the order, I've got to stay where I am.
Indeed.
And at the end of the day, how many can you be involved in as well?
True.
I mean, it's, I became a Teutonic Knight about just under 10 years ago.
Sure.
The Teutonic Knights were the German Knights.
Germanic, yeah.
Yeah, and who were in Jerusalem, and I became a Knight Grand Cross of St. Mary's Church in Jerusalem. Very small, very elite group, that group.
Sure.
And that goes right back to Charlemagne and the
Wow.
Knights of the Round Table as
Amazing.
well. So a lot of history, a lot of history there. And that gives you a brevet. Your title is Sir at that stage, whereas our title in the Knights of Malta is Chevalier, right, or Chevalier.
Chevalier.
Yeah. So hence the CHEV before your title.
So how does that work? Do they change your birth certificate, or how does that work?
No, it's the records are kept in the historical archives.
Sure.
And what they call a brevet, which is the Sir and the title of Teutonic Knight, that's kept in the record in the archives in
back in Malta.
No, back in Lichtenberg actually, being the Germanic one.
Sorry, Teutonics. Yeah,
the Teutonics. The Malta one, yes, they're kept in the archives in Malta.
Okay, cool.
So once you become an OSJ, that's your title, unless you bring it into disrepute, right? You do something that you shouldn't be doing.
Fair enough.
Because it can be removed.
Yeah, I'm sure. Particularly with an order that prides itself on being all about that, you can't have scallywags.
Yeah, and on the male side, you're a chevalier or chevalier. If you're a female, you become a dame.
Fair enough.
So Dame Lauren, right? So
Dame Lauren.
So that's.
Sid, super interesting insights into a millennial organization. I mean, 1,000 years old, just about, which is incredible, and also great insights into a life well lived, my friend. And I also appreciate your openness and your willingness to share. I suspect that this may not be the only time we're going to have you on the show, because I think we could probably do another 10 shows with some of those stories in between.
Uncover a few.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure if we wanted to go there, we could. But I wanted to thank you for coming on today. It's been a real honor, a real pleasure. The few times that we have had the opportunity to have chats, I've really appreciated it. I think you're an amazing human being. I think you're someone who's a role model for others to follow, both personally and also in business, and also just generally as a man. You're a great family man, and I know life has thrown some curveballs at you, but I just wanted to say that I think you deserve the absolute best, my brother, and I'll be watching you overcome whatever hurdles are in front of you now and for the rest of your life, because obviously these things never stop going away completely, but it's all about getting back up and
dusting
off and soldiering on. But back to us, I consider you a brother. I'm very fortunate to have you as a friend, and if there's anything we can do, both myself, Paulie, or any one of my extended family, to aid or assist in any way, please count on us. And I look forward to spending much more time together, and hopefully down here in the land in Dural, over some asado, some barbecue. Yeah, maybe we can crack this beautiful bottle of wine that you've gifted me with. And again, I just wanted to say thank you for joining the show on Expansion. You've made the show so much bigger with your presence and with today's show. Much appreciated, my friend. Thank you so much.
Raf, you're too kind. It's been the pleasure's more importantly has been mine. I mean, it's been a fantastic experience.
Thank you, my friend.
I was looking forward to coming here, and more importantly, just looking what an amazing job you've done in this studio.
Thank you, brother.
I can't wish you any more than the best, as
Thank
always.
you, my friend. God bless.
I seriously, you, your team, everyone behind you, good old Paulie with his damn photos of me, but that's all right. His ghosts, but it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And a little bit that I can talk about what I've done in life. Everyone's got stories to tell.
Definitely, brother.
And every story is always interesting from everybody. Right?
Yes.
It's and we learn from them.
Yes, and that's what we're here for. That's the importance of me for doing this and bringing us together.
Them, and the world's still a good place. And
indeed,
we've just got to keep it that way.
Thank you, my friend.
Enjoy life, but. You know what? It's been a pleasure. I love it, and
thank you,
as I do you, Raf.
God bless, my brother. Thank you so much, man. Much respect. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Paulie. Thank you so much for holding it down for the past couple of hours or more, and of course, Expansion, the podcast, supported by our founding sponsors, Crash Claim, making friends by accident, and also Q Corp Construction. We hope to see you guys again sometime soon, and we'll be seeing you around. Muchas gracias. Ciao. Wake up! Thanks.